a three-headed beast waiting for them to tackle. Live from Pocono Raceway, the KBueno Racing Network welcomes you to round number 11 in the inaugural season of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series from Long Pond, Pennsylvania. And we are so happy that you are joining us on a Sunday night. Crazy super speedway racing in Talladega. We've got 2.5-mile action from the Tricky Triangle for the DTH Cup Series. Alongside no one, I'm Kenneth Bueno. We should be joined by our great commentator, Francisco Bacallao, later on in tonight's coverage. But the big thing about this race tonight is it begins a grueling journey until the regular season finale at Daytona. When we cross the line for the checkered flag tonight, that will make 3 races to go until the playoffs begin after round number 14. We've gone pretty much through the bulk of this regular season. We've seen how things have changed over the heart of it, but past the All-Star break, things have been very treacherous, but have also seen a lot of the same in the same way as well. Pocono race number 11 will be out in Nashville Superspeedway, and then Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway in Illinois. So those 3 races, 3 very different racetracks, all of them with their unique characteristics. None of them quite like any of the other tracks we'll see in this 2025 calendar year, but that means we are just inching closer to the 16 drivers that will fight for a Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series championship, starting at Charlotte, and then we whittle it all the way down to Homestead and Miami with the 4 that will run for the title on August the 10th. Well, it was an off week for the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series field. They got to enjoy the April Easter festivities over the last weekend, but we have to remind you of how things unfolded the last time we raced at the virtual Michigan International Speedway, and boy, that one was probably one of the most fun races we've had to date. Ethan Fonseca Moreno, second consecutive pole award winner after taking his first pole at Dover, second one at Michigan, leading the field to the green flag, and things would get chaotic early. There's Richard Modric getting turned, entering turn 1. He would go right at the track into Brad Fulham, sending him hard into the outside wall. Modric and Fulham will become some of the first DNFs in the race, but it didn't take long until the racing got fierce at the front. Stepien, just like he did at Dover, put the challenge up to Moreno, the pole sitter, captured the race lead shortly thereafter off of turn number 2, and then further racing up at the front. Stepien getting pressured by Lawson Peel, and basically the same cast of characters we saw at Dover Motor Speedway not that long ago. All of these guys putting themselves at the front early and being very aggressive, and despite Lawson not taking a qualifying time, this was the quickest we've seen him catch up to the field. Here is the end of stage number 1, 3 wide between Hunter, Stephen Harlow, and Stepien, but Lawson Peel was able to hang on, capture the stage W, what would be one of his several of the 2025 season. Here's Moreno, pole sitter, getting tagged into turn 1 by Eric Stewart. One of the wonderful saves we would see out of the back of the field to prohibit a yellow flag. Battle for the lead, Warren Kyle Keith took a shot at the front of the field. He led a couple of laps, the St. Augustine, Florida native, still looking for some of his best finishes of the season. Then down the back straightaway, there goes Jason Anderson, car number 92, went for the spill after a tag off of the second corner. And what a race he was having, trying to step into the top 10. And then the biggest crash of the night, Stephen Harlow in the heart of the accident, 3 wide, tagging into turn 1 and careening back up the speedway, basically got everyone involved. And then Ethan Fonseca Moreno, the bad luck continues for the Californian in the inside of 4 wide, Justin Erb down the middle, and they will go hard into the outside wall, will bring out another yellow flag. This was the pivotal moment of the race, though. After that caution flag, we did not see another for the rest of the race, and from there it was all Lawson Peel taking away the lead. Jaden Porter there within grasp in those final laps, but the car just could not hang on. Lawson Peel crosses the line, and after a several stretch week of different race winners, Lawson establishes himself as the favorite again for the championship. That's his 4th win of the 2025 season, and still putting himself miles ahead of the rest of the competition as we get into the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series playoffs later this season. And with that, that brings us to the playoff picture that we arrive with entering Pocono Raceway. Lawson is set to have the most playoff points out of anybody in the field with those 4 race victories. Hard to beat the man who's been the best over the course of the year. Brandon Banks, Ross Harlow, Eric Schaefer, Stubblefield, and Craig Parks among those that are currently still locked in to the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series playoffs as of right now. And we saw how things shifted at Michigan a couple of weeks ago. Chris Cabot was the man right on the edge of the cut line in the top 16, but he could not be able to put himself in a better position right now. 15th, 6 points above the cut line. Couldn't put himself in a full buffer to the rest of the guys behind him, but as for right now, he is somewhat safe. Richard Swavely, on the other hand, only 12 points above the 17th place car in the standings. That's Casey Knighton. Hard-fought battle with Chris Progar, Kevin Roy, and Robert Moyer Jr. among those that are at the front of the field sometimes, but have struggled a bit over the majority of this regular season, so they're going to try and put themselves in a much better spot. And with that, we are joined now by the second member of our broadcast team, Francisco Bacalhau. And Francisco, I think the one thing we learned from Michigan were two things. The first thing was that no one could really stop Lawson Peel when you give him a race like that. Strategic masterclass at the end to capture his 4th win of the season, but things are still pretty close when it comes down to that 16th place cut line. Chris Cabot was on the edge a couple of weeks ago. Now it's Richard Swavely, the man we're going to have in the spotlight going into this one.
Yeah, happy to be here from the Pocono Raceway. Hope everybody had a fantastic Easter last weekend, and we're back to it with some cut line racing here as we move our way towards Daytona. Just a handful of races to go. This race is going to be very difficult for these guys to navigate. It's a long one. It's a tricky one, the tricky triangle, of course, but you mentioned that a couple guys there around the cut line need to have some good runs in order to give themselves a chance to make the postseason, and we'll just have to see who performs and who doesn't.
And we've seen the storyline evolve over the campaign. The biggest thing is that Drinkin' Bros Racing has been the outright best team so far. They have been carried by Lawson Peel, but one of the other drivers in that crucial DBR camp is already a race winner this season. That's the number 5 car, Brandon Banks, who talked with us a couple of weeks ago and let us know how special that relationship with his DBR teammates really is in many leagues, including this one.
It's been awesome, man. I said a lot of us have been together for 5 years or so, pretty much since like 2020. So it's been a lot of fun. Like I said, we've met up at races and had some good times with each other, and just coming in here every night and just trying to push each other to be a little bit better. It's made a big difference. Team is very strong, like you said. Anybody in here can win a race on any given night, so it's really nice to have that kind of people around you, so that it does make you want to be better. So yeah, definitely an excellent team that we got here, and like I said, look forward to as many seasons as we can run together.
Fun chatting with Brandon Banks. One of the things that you'll notice in that little feature video is his huge Lego collection in the background of his screen. He is an avid Lego collector. We chatted up about his favorite Lego builds, the favorite schemes or the sets that he has built over the course of his, over his life, and having Legos in the background. So it was really cool to see his thoughts about DBR, his thoughts about everything in general, and hopefully more to come with the interviews of the drivers and getting to know the personalities that make up this inaugural Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season. Well, with that, it puts us in perfect timing to get to the starting grid, where on the front row here from Pocono Raceway is the man who's been the best qualifier of them all in 2025. Warren Kyle Keith captures another pole, this time from the tricky triangle at a 53.399. He'll be the first to see the green flag alongside the Project Hupner number 11 of Stephen Hartlow on the outside in position number 2. Back in row number 2 is where you'll find Ross Harlow in the 16 car inside of the row, with Steven Maggio for KBueno Racing making his first career Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series start. He'll take the number 97 car from the outside in position 4. Then a pair of Category 5 Esports Toyota Camrys, starting with Zachary Hall, still yearning for win number 1 of the season in 5th. Cedric Hunter, one of the most dominant forces earlier on in the campaign, will look to get himself back on track. He'll start from P6. Back in row number 4, inside is the Richard Swavely car in the number 32 machine. And then for TOW Racing, Justin Erb has his military Home Depot number 20, and the Chevrolet rounding out the top 8. Then back in 9th and 10th, filing out row number 5 is Chris Cabot, car number 25 in P9, and Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who before this has captured the last 2 poles, hasn't had a finish better than 20th. He'll round out tonight's top 10.
Tony Kivett will be starting from the 11th position with co-owner of the league, Steven Stempian, in P12. The other co-owner, Chris Progar, is in P13, with Parker Bland returning in the number 13 and 14th position. Daytona winner Timothy Stubblefield will be in the 15th position, with Kip Easley in the 16th spot. Number 17, Craig Parks, rolls off P17 once again here alongside the 90 of Sean Kalis. Jason Hastings in his number 4 will be in the 19th spot, with Lawson Peel in his usual place of not taking a time and starting out in the top 20 position.
We'll see how much he cuts through the field, just like we saw at Michigan not that long ago. Eric Schaefer is 21st. Francisco's noted as a driver, but he's not. Brandon Banks should be 22nd, with Alex Muscarella 23rd. 24th to the 18 car of Robert A. Moyer Jr., and then Casey Knighton should round out a field of 25 cars throughout 12 to 13 rows here from the virtual Pocono Raceway. Let's get into our SK Sim Racing race analysis from Long Pond. This race a little structured differently than what we usually expect to see. 35 laps to conclude stage number 1, 40 laps in stage 2, and then an extra 50 to stage number 3. So we slowly up the increment of laps in each and every stage. We go 312 miles, which is usually what you'd see at a full cup-length race at Talladega Superspeedway, but instead we go 312 miles from Pocono at 125 laps. This race was originally scheduled to be 150. It was reduced to 125, which is the number we have now, but still one of the, if not the longest race that we'll see in the season. It's Warren Kyle Keith, the best qualifier, with Stephen Harlow to his outside. Green flag from Pocono Raceway.
The long drive to turn 1 here, and it's a very tricky corner. A lot of bumps there on the inside. Stephen Harlow and Stephen Maggio go up to that third lane. That should give the 78 the advantage. You see the 11 in the front row, very loose. That's going to give the 16 a run. We're 3 wide for the lead.
And they'll go to the inside. That's Ross Harlow, the Chevrolet. Got a couple of drivers to help momentarily. He'll swap in front of Warren Kyle Keith. Zachary Hall's going to fling under, make it 3 wide, entering the tightest corner of them all here at Pocono, the tunnel turn. Turn 2 is where Harlow will find the momentum and go underneath his brother. It is a relative battle for the lead, entering turn 3 on lap 1.
And we're going to see moves in the tunnel turn like that all night long, and it is a difficult corner. You see Ethan Fonseca Moreno working the 4th lane to get all the way up to the outside, and he has already gained nearly 6 positions on this opening lap, and he's using the draft, which on this front straightaway tonight is super crucial. He started 10th, he's up to 5.
What a lap 1 we had already, and Ross Harlow wasting absolutely no time to get to the front. There's Stephen Harlow, peak on the inside. He's going to try and resurge to 2nd place. Cedric Hunter made a wild move outside 3 abreast, entering the tunnel turn, while his teammate in Zachary Hall doesn't give up the fight quite yet. Warren Kyle Keith, despite starting on pole, he has already plummeted to P6. Entering turn 2, and he'll be wide out in the tunnel turn, way outside. Car in the bottom lane of Zachary Hall and company trying to make moves, but so far things have singled out at the front for a little while. Stephen Maggio going to settle into 3rd, and the Harlow brothers 1 and 2 off of the final corner.
And that's an interesting line that Ethan's running in that 3rd, 4th lane. That could be used tonight to carry a lot of momentum down the front straightaway. You see him get to the outside of Cedric Hunter to try to move up to P4 with the draft with his teammate just in front of him of Stephen Maggio. And Ethan, he's really good here at the Pocono Raceway. He's, especially with these next-gen race cars, it's one of his better tracks with this combination of race car, and he's going to hope to work with that 97 in front of him as we have a caution out on the racetrack. Parker Bland with trouble.
It looks like she had trouble off of turn 1, and there is no damage, at least from what we see from car number 13, but she had been fighting in the mid-pack for some positions. And, you know, here at Pocono, the track is so large, you have such long straightaways, everyone is going to stay together unless you get an extremely long green flag run, but that does not happen. And Parker Bland, the cause of the first yellow flag, we'll see at lap number 3 of 125, and this is how it all transpired. Fighting on the inside, that's Zachary Hall, who had made his way through the top 10, somehow fell through the running order. And I don't think there was help there from the front end of Kip Easley's Chevrolet. I think Bland just might have lost it herself, Francisco, off of turn 1. That's a pretty long corner. You're spending a lot of time trying to get the throttle back in, and unfortunately for Bland, didn't seem to work out. Here's a look on board with the Toyota Camry.
Didn't look out of shape, just all of a sudden you see the slow spin, but it was definitely looked like the 8 got into the back of her car before the 13 was any bit of sideways or anything.
Well, luckily, does a great job of escaping the inside wall, so she will continue with a clean race car. The only thing that will be lost is all of that track position. She'll be back in 24th place, but thankfully no one else gets any damage from the opening yellow of the race, and that will calm down a field that I think Francisco seemed antsy to get going. It's been a little while, obviously, 2 weeks. Everyone spent time with their families during their Easter weekend, enjoying the off week from real-life Cup Series action, but as crazy as the Talladega race was at one point in the event, I think this one in the opening 3 is setting the tone for what we should expect to see if we get short green flag runs for the rest of this. And how about Ross Harlow wasting no time at the front of the field, making his moves clear and making his aggression known early. We noted how good he was at Dover Motor Speedway, a race where I think he feels like he could have won at the end of that one, but did not pan out his way. And Harlow already in hot pursuit of his second win of the season. Should he hold on to the lead, and should he remain as aggressive as he is?
Man, this is a long one here tonight. We got 312 miles. That is way too early to really be super aggressive and be this antsy. I mean, I drove more miles today than this race is supposed to be here tonight, and I was not anywhere near aggressive on I-75 as these guys have been so far.
Well, I think that would get you a speeding ticket, maybe a little worse if you're as aggressive on the highway.
I will say, I definitely drove past, I would say, five state troopers. Usually there's a good indication when you can tell there's one up ahead.
That's true. Sometimes they are hiding in plain sight, and you won't really tell that they're there until you actually get crossing to them, and then sometimes it could be a good sign, sometimes it's not.
You know,
but
a really good assist, Kenneth, and I think you might know this trick as well, is let's say you're the oncoming cars, usually give a flash of the headlights. That's a common signal to let people know, yeah, there's a police up ahead. I practice that, and I try to share that information as well.
That's a little community favor there. And, you know, on the app Waze, which a lot of people use for directions, you can actually report if a police is in your area, and it'll show up as a little icon of a tiny, cute police car that's on the road, up the road, or somewhere else, and you can tell when people report that there is a police car on the highway or even across city streets. For me, I've only been pulled over once. It was on a city street, going a little bit too fast, but I'm not going to delve more into that.
I have not been pulled over in Florida. I have been pulled over in North Carolina. It was a bit odd.
A little flex.
Yes, it was I was driving back to my buddy's place after the Coke 600 in 2023, and for those that are in the North Carolina area that have driven through US 74, as soon as the bypass ends, you get back to the normal US 74 route, but there's only one light there, and it's a momentary spot on the road where the speed limit is 35 after being 65. Then it returns to 55. I was going about 70. I crossed the light was green. There was nobody there, and then it goes back to 55. And just as it was getting back to 55, that's when I noticed some bright lights behind me. I will say I was lucky though, because after I gave him my license and the rental car insurance, he came back to me and he said, "It's your lucky day. You're free to go."
Well, that's good news. I ended up getting a ticket for it, but
that's
the officer
not good.
was a little nice. I was going a little faster than he put on the ticket, but that's about it as far as I'll go. Thankfully, no speeding tickets dealt here at Pocono for now. We may see some if we end up in long green flag strategy down pit road, but for the moment, we will double the field up and get ready for the first restart of the night. It should come our way at lap number 7. Ross Harlow has already made the move to the front of the field, getting his first share of laps led from the tricky triangle. He has only finished 3 races outside of the top 15. Every other race, he has ended up in the top 10, whether it be through brute force or not. And a couple of weeks ago at Dover rather, ended up in 4th after nearly capturing the stage win, falling short to Jaden Porter in those winning laps where it seemed like everybody was a part of that final battle for the stage win. Harlow looking for a bit more redemption after missing out on Michigan a couple of weeks ago. Search for win number 2. While Stephen Harlow, on the other hand, his brother, looking for win number 1 after a Michigan race that ended sour. We saw that huge crash entering turn 1 with a bunch of other drivers, and it basically took car number 11 out of the race. But after a quick spin from Parker Bland to bring us under the first yellow flag of the night, we will see the green flag for the second time this evening. Pair of Chevrolets on the front row. KBueno Racing has occupied the second row with rookie Steven Maggio and fellow rookie Ethan Fonseca Moreno on the outside. Pace car will make the step down to the entry of pit road, and as they reach the Geico restart zone for the very first time, all eyes on Ross Harlow, who will have the field all on his watch. Green flag in the air for the second time tonight as the field heads to turn 1. Solid getaway for the 16 car entering turn 1.
3 wide for about the 7th row. Richard Swavely to the inside of Steven Stempion and Justin Erb as they fan out to turn 1. Steve Fonseca working all the way up to that 3rd or 4th lane, the one he likes to use. The 97 gets to the inside of Harlow. We'll see if Ethan decides to help his teammate. He'll stay to the outside, and looking further back, Cedric Hunter trying to make work of the inside, but I think we're going to see all night long. If you're on the outside in that draft, there's just so much more momentum. It's kind of Michigan-esque, especially down the longest front straightaway in all of NASCAR, which is that Pocono front stretch.
And in Moreno's position, it's kind of hard to swing down low and help your teammate when you have so many cars lined up single file on the outside group. It's almost impossible to ignore the run that you're getting off the straightaway, and so he's going to leave his teammate to drive for now. Warren Kyle Keith will step up high to the top shelf, have fellow help from the Toyota Camry and Cedric Hunter, but it gave ample space for Maggio to step back in. He has fallen back to 5th place, and the pole sitter, Warren Kyle Keith, is wanting to redeem himself from the early fall off from lap number 1 to lap number 3, and this is such a big track that it will take a little while before you come across the start-finish line. Nearly a full minute of racing from the cross of the start-finish line to when you finally reap back around to Barney the flagman. Moreno peaking under for 2nd place. Negates the opportunity there. Was all over the move, and Harlow will hold on to P2 as they step into the tunnel turn. And, you know, you had your chance at running some laps here, Francisco, earlier on in the 4-wide racing TJ's Team Series season, and it's the exact same setup. Obviously a longer race, but it's the same track, probably the same-ish track conditions and the same next-gen car. So what do you try and learn the most when you're taking these first laps on cold tires in the middle of such a long line of drafting cars?
Well, the difference between this race and the 4-wide race is we have a lot higher of a track temperature for this race. It's in the triple digits due to the sky conditions. In the 4-wide race, it was mostly an overcast sky later in sim time of day, so it was a faster racetrack and a little bit tighter than what these guys have now. These guys have a little bit more of a free condition. You see the pace down all the way to the bottom there by the 23, I believe that was, that went all the way to the inside. But for your race car, especially on these long runs, it'll help the rotation, but it could easily step out with the rears, especially in turn 3. It could be very precarious because it's such a long corner, turn 3 is, that you get loose and it'll kill any momentum you have down that front straightaway and can really leave you susceptible to position. So you want to make sure you take care of your tires, and if you run below that bottom seam, your car's going to be pretty free, so be ready for it.
And it's one of those places where you can master one corner but still be faulty in the other two, and vice versa. You can have a couple good corners, but maybe the next lap or the lap after that, things start to fall off. And with the way these corners are built from Pocono, they're all resemblant of certain other tracks across the United States. Turn 1, the high banked 14-degree corners modeled after Trenton Speedway, which is a very old track, not in service anymore, obviously. And then you go to the highest speed corner in the entire track, turn number 2. You have to slow down a little bit, but you got to arc the car in the right way, get those left side tires on the yellow line, try not to hit the outside wall, which is something that a lot of drivers end up being guilty of over the course of a green flag run. That one is modeled after the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at 8 degrees, and then the longest corner of them all, the low banked turn 3 at 6 degrees only, modeled after turns 3 and 4 or 1 and 2 at the Milwaukee Mile in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So a trip around this 2.5-mile triangle is one like no other. Very good look on the Charlie Beyer Photography onboard camera from Stephen Harlow as he gets a good look at his brother there on the front end of the screen in Ross Harlow. Top 4 have pulled away nearly by about 10 feet or so. There goes Cedric Hunter and the rest of the company sitting single file, but I think the one thing is clear, Francisco, over the first 11 laps and fresh off of the restart, not as much desperation. Everybody has stepped into the longer green flag portion of the race, and they're just waiting in the ranks right now and seeing what their car does for response as Keith tank slaps the outside wall off of the tunnel turn.
I think the biggest thing to note is that we're going to be here for about 2.5 hours as this race goes on, so you want to bide your chance and play it patience. And speaking of patience, there's the 87 showing none of it, jumps to the outside of Stephen Harlow there in turn 3 running that line that he has very much shown in the early portion of this race. You see Ross Harlow tries to give his brother the draft, wants him behind him versus the 87, but Ethan has been able to run that line well, has now the preferred chance, and Warren Kyle Keith would try to get up there and help that 97 get clear. In fact, he already got clear of the 11, and now he's going to drop some more positions as Warren Kyle Keith and Cedric Hunter get to the outside of the 11. So now it's up for Ethan Fonseca Moreno to catch up to Ross Harlow and try to see if he can make a battle for the top position. Looking through the rest of the running order, Lawson Peel has not made too much progress. He is up to 13th, working on Muscarella for B12, but it's one of those slower climbs. It's not as the Michigan race where he was able to get up through there immediately.
You saw a bit there that Ethan sort of opened up the floodgates, made the move to the outside of Stephen Harlow, and all of a sudden Cedric Hunter had a piece of the inside on Warren Kyle Keith. That is where things have calmed down, though, over the first 12. And there's Alex Muscarella, Lawson Peel, that side-by-side battle for P12 going into turn 1. Fellow battle up the road, Chris Progar for TOW Racing taking a step on the outside of the Category 5 Esports Toyota Camry of Zachary Hall. And I think one thing was uncharacteristic of Lawson Peel in a good way as Muscarella gets sideways off turn 1 and is able to corral the stock car before it gets all out of shape. We saw an uncharacteristic, super strong move through the field in stage number 1 to get to the front of the field and lead a couple of laps. And for most of this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series schedule, we don't see much of Lawson Peel at the front until the second stage of the race, and then you get to the checkered flag and he's always in contention. But for the moment, it seems to be much like what we've seen for most of the calendar, just waiting until stage 2 strikes and until the long green flag run gets into effect. And that's really where Lawson is able to make his money. And what really helped him get to the front at Michigan was a lot of the carnage in the opening few laps, cold tires, and the inside lane that basically carried him all the way to the front and led some laps, got a stage victory in stage number 1, and held on through the long green flag strategy over Jaden Porter to capture win number 4 of the season. So far, still watching to see when Lawson Peel decides to make the strike, but for now, Ross Harlow in control, a step above Moreno, who has found his way to second. Stephen Harlow, by the way, in all of the mess, using the inside with no help. Just shows you how much draft matters here at Pocono from P2 to P6 in the matter of a lap.
And watching the lines that Ethan uses here to try to get up to the 16, very important. You see Warren Kyle Keith run all the way to the top. Moreno almost gets into the wall. Now they're side by side for the third spot, Warren Kyle Keith and Cedric Hunter. But watch Moreno on this lap. He's going to try to run a different line than the 16 in each corner, and it's not necessarily the same in each one. In 1 and 2, or in turn 1, you see him try to go to the outside, but now he has a 78 there, so he probably was forced into that. And Warren Kyle Keith will clear him off of turn 1, so now Moreno is actually going to try to cross him over, and there's the block.
Beautiful move by Warren Kyle Keith to make the step above, and Moreno will try and retaliate here in turn 2. No look down into the tunnel turn, and all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, and his teammate is trying to fight fiery with Cedric Hunter in the fight for what is going to be 4th place on the racetrack, and that is the first time we're seeing Maggio in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, and we noted just how strong of an opening it was for KBueno Racing with Moreno, Jaden Porter, and now the tertiary car that should make some starts for the rest of the year in Maggio. Porter not in this race tonight from Pocono, given he is at the real Talladega Super Speedway, watching the Cup Series go around the 2.66 miler earlier on this afternoon. And so Moreno, Maggio will pick up the slack for BBR. Moreno has not been able to find his way back to Warren Kyle Keith, and the pole sitter is eyeing down the race leader. Took a little bit for Keith to find his mojo, but he's here looking to the tunnel turn.
And something I was wanting to explain with Ethan, but we saw in battle Warren Kyle Keith, is watch Warren Kyle Keith here as he gets behind the 16 to try and draft him. He doesn't want to be directly behind him. He wants to be about half a car width below, because that actually, for some reason, gives you better draft than being directly behind him. So you see Keith running that line that when he really wants to run all the way up there, and now Moreno's to the inside, but watch this run he's going to get here. Clears Ethan, and now if he runs half a lane down, he's going to get a huge run and have a chance at the lead.
It's part of that approach of the half side draft, if you will. You're kind of dragging air from the quarter panel of the car in front. I guess that gives you somewhat of a better run, and here comes Keith striking down the bottom alley. He'll look for the race lead, and our second proper lead change of the race could be in the balance. 17 laps in, but the inside does not give Keith the grip to make it stick down the corner. Harlow remains defensive. Moreno, Hunter, and Maggio looking to fight for third up to turn 2.
And those teammates are working together to try to stay ahead of Cedric Hunter. Hunter gets into the apron, has to check up to avoid getting into Stephen Maggio. Now Stephen Harlow tries to look to a way to get past the 45.
Take a peek down under in turn 3. This is a place where you can make it happen, but because of the such shallow depths of the banking, only 6 degrees down there in turn 3. A little hard to put on the gas pedal earlier than the guy on the outside, and Hunter will remain up in the top 5 as everyone single files through. Here comes Keith again, slinging down low, about 195 going into turn 1. You have to hop on the brakes as quickly as possible, get the car rotated, and once more the Till Valhalla Project Chevrolet will keep his pace on the outside. Keith with a bit better of a response, but still cannot make the clearance on car number 16. Keith is giving it his all, though, in the first 18 laps.
And turn 1's not necessarily a corner you want to just throw it all the way in there and try to slide job it. It could actually work to your detriment trying to even attempt it. So that's why we're not seeing that being done, as I think that was Alex Mascarella that was sideways there in turn 2 there for a brief moment. But you see him jump up to the outside trying to get that big run once again, and it's really worked for him. You see just how much he's able to close down the front straightaway. He's going to get to the inside much earlier than he's been able to do. Tries to get away from the side draft as much as possible, going all the way next to the checkered patterned paint on the inside, and he might have the nose out in front, so he might try to drive it in deep.
This is where he can send it to clear and make himself the second lead change driver of the night, and he has it clear for a moment. He is saving it off turn 1. Nearly had it all right from the get-go of the apex, but Keith holds on. New race leader from Pocono.
And you just about saw exactly why you wouldn't normally do that move. You just get so loose by carrying all that extra speed and then having the air stacked on your rear spoiler compared to what you didn't have before. So let's get a replay of it to see that move as the 16 goes to the bottom of again. There you see the 78 on the bottom, just eases off the brake to get up in front of the 16. Now he has air behind him, and that makes that car very loose. And look how much the 16 actually gets into the back of him, and that actually is what prevented the crossover attempt. So he has to kind of sit back and wait for another opportunity as Moreno continues to close in P3. And how about Zachary Hall up in P4 now?
And Zachary Hall has recovered nicely after dropping a bit from the first run of the race that only lasted about 3 laps. It's probably 7.5 miles total around this Pocono Raceway, but the Category 5 Esports duo, who have been very strong in this inaugural Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season, are putting themselves back in the fight. We'll keep an eye on those 2 Toyota Camrys, who happen to be the only drivers in the Toyota branches. Keith gets sideways off turn 2, had some help from Ross Harlow, and there ignites our second caution flag of the evening at lap 20. Oh boy, Ross Harlow was right on his tail. Keith was fighting to save it. There was no escaping the contact, and thankfully the 78 escapes the inside wrath of the wall. But that will ignite the yellow, and there goes WKK's track position.
Very lucky not to hit the inside wall with any part of his race car. Credit to him for that, firstly. But second, you can see that one happening with how tight his car got in the center of turn 1. With this angle, or turn 2, you can see it well from this angle right here. As he goes into turn 2, you're going to see the car go in initially well, and then right about there, it just kind of goes away from him, has to check up a little bit, gets loose from the air, and then the 16 does not expect that to happen, gets into the back of him inadvertently. And he does a good job of hanging on to his car, too, since the contact kind of got him sideways. But in all of that, it gave the 87 the top position.
And there's Warren Kyle Keith just getting back to the rear end of the field. Moreno will take the lead and make it the 3rd proper lead change of the night, although in a bit of an uncharacteristic manner due to the situation off of the tunnel turn. And you got to wonder if, for Warren Kyle Keith there, it was a situation of those rear tires being a little hot, and hot more than he anticipated, because that move in turn 1 for sure got him on edge. I mean, those rear tires were lining up. Car was sideways nearly the entire corner. And, you know, it takes a little bit for these cars to cool down the tires after you have a moment like that, and through the very mighty bumps in turn number 2. That they call it the tunnel turn for a reason, because there is legitimately a tunnel that goes underneath that corner to exit and enter the Pocono Raceway virtually and in real life. So that creates a huge an imbalance of the asphalt on the raceway, and so you'll have a situation where drivers get loose. Watch this call down pit road. Ethan Fonseca Moreno and Ross Harlow will step in. It looks like Steven Maggio and some of the Category 5 Esports Camp drivers, along with others, say, yeah, no way, 22 laps in.
And Lawson Peel, one of those that decides to stay out as well, among others. So about half the field in, most of the field really is the one that decides to make their way into the pit lane. With the leader of those being Ethan Fonseca-Moreno. You see some different strategies there, or that's actually Warren Cox. He's coming in late. Looks like it is going to be 4 tires for Ethan Fonseca-Moreno. Actually had an 11.1 stop, so that's 2 tires most likely for Ethan, and that's something we see KBueno Racing do, especially Steven Maggio. So probably an attempt by Moreno to get a different handling race car here and try to do something in these closing laps, but you could also just as likely see some of these guys stay out in the end of stage number 1. But I will say, interesting decision to bring it down pit road, because it's not like you can get to the end of stage 2 on fuel by pitting here. So I'm wondering, are they banking on some kind of caution, or are they going to come in for fuel only at the stage 1 caution? Or it's a good thing to think about, considering the fact that these 2 stages, they're in their normal format. You wouldn't have to pit under green if you pit at the stage end.
It is a solid point, and at a track as big as Pocono Raceway, you got to be a little more keen on what your fuel levels look like, because, you know, at Pocono, whether it be through league races on iRacing or real-life Cup Series action, a lot of times these Pocono races come down to strategy and fuel mileage. And for Maggio, Hall, Hunter, and the rest of the guys that have elected to stay out, obviously the call is catered more towards track position and what will be some beneficiary stage points, but for all of these other guys in the back, their strategy altered for the rest of this race. They will not be on that typical stop at every stage category, which we'll see sort of dissipate over stage 2 and stage 3 as the stage lengths get a little bit longer. But Maggio will get his first career laps led here at Pocono in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, and he will be the main man to beat once we get to turn 1 on the restart. Crucial situation here, because Category 5 Esports will have both of their Toyota drivers on the inside of row number 1 and row number 2. So lots of help, lots of possibility to predict Maggio's run through the restart zone, while Steven Stepien will try to give some assistance to the KBueno Racing number 97. And this will make a restart within 12 laps to go until the end of the first stage, which will come down to lap number 35. And Maggio trying to follow in the footsteps of his teammate Jaden Porter to become the second KBueno Racing driver to win a stage. We saw at Dover how Porter had dominated the first leg of that race, won stage number 1, then in a highly contentious stage 2, beat Ross Harlow and company to take away the stage W, and then went on to dominate the rest of the way for the win, which so far is the only BBR victory after what is 2.5 maybe starts when we get further down in this race. But Maggio will take the high side as we head into turn number 1 for the next time. I mean, this is going to be big, Francisco. I mean, Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter among those drivers that have been at the front of the stages earlier on this season, but have not found the luck quite yet. Cedric Hunter hasn't won a stage since Las Vegas.
Well, it has been a while for the 45, and he swept those stages as well. So we'll see if Cedric Hunter is able to get things turned in the right direction for him, as we'll have about 12 to 13 laps to go here in this opening stage. Parker Bland has found her way back into the top 10 after staying out, or trying a different strategy here under this caution flag. The pace car makes its way down to pit road, and we're back under green with Steven Maggio and Zachary Hall in the front row. Great jump for your race leader. It's going to allow him and Steven Stepien to really use that outside lane to try to get in front of Zachary Hall. Lawson Peel will move up to the outside in front of Alex Mascarella, and they dive their way for turn 1. Let's see how these tires perform in the next couple laps.
Toyota's working together on the inside. Chevrolet power on the top side. Lawson Peel giving the help to Steven Stepien may get them the better run off of turn 1. And indeed, that's the case. Hall will slide in for third. And remember, the first car on fresh tires is 10th place, Ethan Fonseca-Moreno. So keep an eye on the Trackhouse Connor Zilic looking number 87 Camaro as he tries to weave his way through the field in the final 11 laps of stage number 1 from Pocono. Maggio with a clear advantage by 0.2 of a second. Stepien in a race-high P2. He tries to fend off Hall. Now Lawson Peel. And there goes Moreno way up top in turn 3, trying to get out of the back half of the top 10.
The move we saw him do at the initial start of the race, and it's something we've seen Warren Kyle Keith do as well. So we'll see how he's able to do the progress. He hasn't really moved up all that much, only gained 1 position. He goes to the inside of Stephen Harlow. Parker Bland in front of him goes way up the racetrack. He's going to have a chance to get around her here, but they'll be side by side, and Harlow will help 13 down the straightaway, and that'll be frustrating for the 87, as he feels he can definitely get up there with those new tires, and that's really what costs you in a strategy like this, is when you get caught in a drafting situation like that, it kills you time, because look how much he's able to gain with the tire difference. Just draft, I mean, so much more, and the 11 kind of went with the half block there. They'll end up 3 wide going into 3, and look at the send on the inside. The 11 drifts up and gets into the 13. That'll push her up the racetrack. Now the other Harlow tries to go to the inside. They'll be side by side, 2 rows deep.
And Moreno has to outstretch his hand here because the time will start raining down. And this is one of those speedways, much like Michigan, much like Auto Club, where you have a very, very specific balance of drivetrain from the fresh tires and then drive from the draft that helps you move up through the field. You need friends to make things work. Moreno has run up to P7, but he's got a bit of ways to go if he wants to get up to Alex Muscarella. Now here comes Zachary Hall, made the move under Steven Stempien for second and wants a bit more. Flings his Toyota down to the inside, coming to lap number 27. And what's most important is that Stempien, now Lawson Peel, will extend the outreached hand. First time we see Peel over the course of this race at the front in stage number 1. Get gridlocked for the top spot off of turn number 3.
And look at Cedric Hunter making it 3 wide for third.
And how much would that harm their run down the straightaway? Maggio, in the attempt to block down low, weaves in front of Hall. Hunter moves up to third. He'll try and strike underneath the Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet. That's silver and dark gray. Number 88 car on the outside of the raceway. Hunter fighting his Toyota. He will save it off turn number 1. And they're all single file now through the top 5. Is there anything that Zachary Hall can do to steal this stage inside the final 8?
Well, he's got time, and he's going to have opportunities with this draft, so he doesn't need to do anything too crazy to try and get around the 97 if he wants to win this stage. So he has to pick and choose when he wants to go for the move, which lines to run. But he's definitely going to have a chance if he goes about this exit right. If he's able to learn what Warren Calkeith did, he can definitely make a run to turn 1 here. As Maggio, you see the back end wiggles a little bit, and it's going to get the 23 a chance as they're side by side for third. And Ethan Fonseca Moreno now finds himself up to 6th. He's gotten past the 48.
How many times have we seen that battle for third between those two drivers, and fights for the lead, fights for other track position? Steven Stempien and Lawson Peel, who have raced each other clean, and they've raced each other hard over this very short but fun Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series inaugural season. Peel is stepping all the way to the bottom of the racetrack just to escape the side draft, but it loses him the possibility of third place entering the very bumpy tunnel turn. And car number 23 of Zachary Hall peeking to the inside. Lots of fire in his belly, trying to get his first career Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series stage win, while Stempien, who had beat a ton of the drivers off the way at Michigan a couple of weeks ago, searching for win number 1 in a series that hasn't shown him the greatest of luck. And Maggio's loose off turn 3. Here comes Hall, possibly to the inside, but he does not have the momentum yet.
I will say what I've noticed is that the tires aren't making too much of an impact here, especially when these guys have had over 20 laps on their tires. So if they do decide to stay out or take fuel only under the stage caution and have track position on the rest of the field, it's not exactly given they'll just run their way back. As you see, Lawson Peel have a big moment there off of turn 1. He's going to go all the way to the inside, and here now goes the 87 of Ethan Fonseca Moreno to the top 5.
Spotter probably telling Lawson Peel bottom 3 as they were coming off of turn number 1. Things tighten up in the tunnel turn, and Hall gets a bit too eager, and so does Ross Harlow at the back end of this super long line of cars from second on back. It's allowed Maggio to pull away. The largest gap we've seen from the leader on back, nearly half a second.
Moreno.
And there goes Moreno. The fresh tires are finally paying off. Couple of
goes
cars
Hunter.
loose off turn 3, and Cedric Hunter goes for the spill off the final corner. And as things got wild, things got hectic. And Cedric Hunter, Lawson Peel among those in the heart of the accident that should bring us the end of stage number 1.
I think by 1 lap we might be good to try this, because it is 6 laps to go. And I believe in the rule book they say 5 laps to go is the cut line for being able to get to the stage. We'll see what admins decide to say about that, but I think we're good to go. And that is correct. Chris Progar has just relayed that is not the end of the stage. So we still have an opportunity to get to the end of stage 1. And you saw it right there. 45 was getting loose. He was definitely on the throttle trying to stay in front of Moreno there. And it just stepped on him on quarter exit when he got that air stacked up on his rear spoiler. And Moreno had nowhere to go and all that. And he's lucky not to get any significant piece in this. But Hunter, of course, is going to get the bad part in this. Lawson Peel also went for a semi-spin, but he kind of kept it off of anybody else. Was lucky not to get into the 45 there. Lose a little bit of track position, and his tires will lose a little bit of performance, but Hunter will probably try to come in and get some kind of damage repair, as he has definitely lost all his track position.
And it was a situation where Hunter looked like he wanted to stay in the gas pedal to commit to that pass on Moreno, but the next-gen car can only take so much. Those rear tires can only take so much. He lit them up, car went sideways, and as he checks up Moreno, really nowhere to go as he's got the head of steam down the front straightaway. And so it doesn't kill any of the cars in this race, but for two guys, it is going to be a
Moreno
very
pits.
big setback. As here comes the fight entering pit road. Moreno decides he's going to come in again, try to get some second life. Lawson Peel obviously follows suit. Possible damage there on the Napa Chevrolet. Chris Cabot, Parker Bland. I'm on a list of maybe 8 or so cars that have come down pit road here in the final 4 laps to stage number 1. And that is a good sign from race control Chris Pargard telling the field, hey, we're still going to run this one to the end of stage 1. So don't think that you're going to be calm from here on out. You are going to have a quick dash to the green and white checkered flag, which at this moment is up for grabs between a ton of guys. And for many of them, they have not been able to win a stage. And with the stage racing format we have in this Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, it's basically similar to what you see in the Cup Series field in the modern era of stage racing, where you will get extra playoff and bonus points in general just for winning a stage. It has helped Steven Stempien considerably, even though he has had a ton of races not go his way. The stage wins have carried him a lot, and we obviously know how many stage and rather playoff points you get for winning a race in this series, which is something that Lawson Peel has had pick him up throughout the year. But it could be a big difference for guys like Zachary Hall, who have had a consistent season so far, but hasn't been able to get that final puzzle piece in the group together to get a race victory. Steven Stempien wants to continue a positive momentum boost in the wake of some pretty tough endings to the races. Stephen Harlow, he's been pretty good, but he hasn't won a stage so far in 2025. Ross Harlow has been close to the victory a couple of times this year, has the win at New Hampshire in his back pocket, but plenty of guys, Francisco, that could really use a boosting from the playoff points that you get from the stage win, but they're going to have to lock in here. I think it's going to be maybe 3 laps to go in the stage until we get to the end.
I think everybody, not Lawson Peel, could definitely use these playoff points as a chance to gain on him, because he's the only driver to win more than one race this season. So at this point, if anybody can get a second or even a third win before we get to the end of Daytona, that would be a huge chance as a fighting shot going into the playoff season, as Lawson Peel just has a huge advantage as far as overall point standing spot, but also just the amount of race wins he's been able to build up, even though he doesn't have nearly the same amount of stage wins as, say, Steven Stempien, but he does have I think 1 or 2 to his name throughout the season. So Peel, playoff point leader, and he could still add to that during this race on board there with Steven Stempien, your stage win leader this season. He's got, I think, about 5 or 6 possibly to his name for this season, and he's looking to try and get another one here. We're going to have 3 laps to decide this stage. If a caution comes out, that'll be the stage end. And I'll tell you what, it is going to be action-packed for the next 7.5 miles when we drop the green.
And this is probably the best case scenario for Stempien here, inside of row number 2. And obviously the leader has full control of the restart, so they usually get the best jump out of anyone in the field. But if you're Steven Stempien, the last thing you're worrying about is the cars on the outside and what you can do to beat them. But because you get that early jump from the race leader, who is basically waiting for the entire field to react to their action, Stempien can get to the gas a little bit first, and he's got the inside lane entering turn 1. So chances are he can clear Zachary Hall and get second, and then set his eyes on the race leader, or more, just depending on how that one drop of the green flag and restart goes. But we'll keep an eye on the Bass Pro Shops Club, number 88 Chevrolet. New paint scheme for tonight. Field will come off of turn number 3 in the hands of Steven Maggio in his debut, trying to capture his first stage win and following the tracks of his teammate Jaden Porter before him. Green flag waves, 3 laps to go in stage 1.
Kenneth, I've always said this from the very beginning I got iRacing. I've always told you this. I feel like restarting behind the race leader versus being on the front row is a huge advantage to yourself. Just overall, you get such a better restart and you have a better chance. And right there, Steven Stempien has proved my point correct. He is able to get ahead of Zachary Hall, who now has to fight to even stay in the third position with Ross Harlow. And now Steven Stempien gets a little bit of a run on Steven Maggio. Might not make a move for the tunnel turn, but he's in the prime position.
And Ross Harlow trying to rekindle that aggression from the start of this race to take the lead away. He'll slide underneath Zachary Hall and make the move for third. Remember, top 10 get stage points. This goes all the way back to the 7 car of Chris Progar, who's in a mix and match group of machines. Richard Swavely, Kip Easley, there's Brandon Banks and Alex Muscarella, which before the yellow were fighting for that final stage position, and they are side by side, multiple rows deep. Maggio watches behind as Stempien builds the run, entering turn 1, as we'll head into the final lap of the stage next time by.
And right now, Swavely look to the inside of 3 wide. He's trying to race Kip Easley for 9th. And if he keeps doing that, Tony Kivitt and P11 will have a chance to try and get up there for the stage points, and so will Timothy Stubblefield. So those 3 in prime position. Warren Kyle Keith is not too far behind, so you could look out for him to join in the battle for the final stage point position itself. And you see right there, Stempien continues to sit behind Steven Maggio. These 2 are teammates in 4 wide, not in this series, but they're definitely some good allies, so they know that they're going to race each other hard but fair here in this final lap of the stage. We'll see what kind of effect Ross Harlow will play. See the ADA kind of jump away from him there in turn 3. It's going to allow Ross Harlow to jump to the inside. This is exactly what Steven Maggio wants to see, is those 2 side by side behind him for the next lap.
And Stempien in the turbulent air, backed up at the apex of turn 3 to try to get better rotation through the corner, and that allowed Harlow to get in. Side check contact. Ross Harlow sending his teammate out of the way. He wants the stage 1 win desperately, and he's got a good run off turn 2. Steven Harlow gets a tag of the outside wall. Maggio to the inside to block. Here comes Harlow for the switcheroo to the inside. He'll get the look down the tunnel turn, and does Maggio make it stick? Stempien nearly gives the bumper to his teammate. We may be 3 wide. Entering turn 3 for the final time in stage 1. Who will get it this time? Stempien down the inside. Contact between Harlow and Maggio off the final corner, and it may just be a drag race to the start-finish line. Steven Maggio clings on to the momentum, and Steven Maggio, in his debut, wins stage number 1.
You can't make this up. That is a great battle for the stage win there between those 3. Zachary Hall was in a prime position to make it just about 4 wide. And that was an excellent display of racing, as I'm hearing from some of the guys in the voice chat. There was a moment with Lawson Peel there in turn 2. He was able to save it. I'll try to get the video. He made an excellent save in the tunnel turn.
And there's the damage assessed to Steven Harlow, who will spend a bit of extra time on pit road. He had slung to the outside wall. This is what happened in the tunnel turn. Contact from behind from Peel. Look at the save. Wow, in the front of the field, everyone gets by. Peel holds on to the race car, but most importantly, and in a negative way, Lawson will miss out on stage points. As of lap number 35, Moreno also missed out in 14th place. Warren Kyle Keith, the pole sitter, missed out on stage points in 12th. And the Chicagoland winner, Brandon Banks, is going to be the last driver to get at least 1 point or more in the opening stage of the race from Pocono, as he holds on to 10th. Whatever was left of it, him in the fight with Alex Muscarella sort of dissipated. Then came Kip Easley, Tony Kivitt, Timothy Stubblefield. And when you have such a short dash to the start-finish line, it's really up in the air. It's kind of like a super speedway of who will get the position. And in all of the madness coming to the start-finish line, Steven Maggio will hang on for his first career drop in the Hammah Cup Series stage. And I'd imagine, Francisco, that, you know, it's a good feeling to win a stage, even in a small increment like that in your debut race. And I know he races a lot of this competition on Wednesday nights with the 4-wide racing series, but still does feel good to step into a series for the first time and do well. Maggio on the call to stay out pays off tenfold.
Absolutely, and this is serving great practice for Steven Maggio, as we do have a playoff race in the Slide Job Racing Series at Pocono on Tuesday, so he's definitely going to take some notes here to try to apply over in that race. I'll try to have better luck than I did in Darlington last week, but I feel confident after my 4-wide run here.
Well, that's the cool thing about iRacing is that you can run in multiple leagues, and if they do share similar calendars, they share similar racetracks with the same race car, you can just apply what you've learned in a league race to another league race, and so far and so forth. As here comes the field on pit road. Mind you, we had that split strategy call. They got the field sort of half and half cut on one of the crucial yellow flags of the race. But there will be at least one driver to stay out, and it will be the TOW racing car of Justin Erb.
The only one.
Here comes everyone else.
Yeah, the only one to stay out is Justin Erb, so that means everybody, even guys that pitted a second time during that first stage, are going to be in. And it's fuel only for Ethan Fonseca Moreno as he took tires onto the previous restart. And they see he's going to be the first one to exit pit road. Lawson Peel going to be second off of pit road. 5.7, 6.0 respectively on their stops. I don't believe those are tires for those two on that particular pit stop. First one to definitely take tires is the 16 of Ross Harlow. Steven Maggio will lose out quite a bit here. He'll be down to 8th place. But let's see if we can talk with our stage winner.
Let's get a word in with our Stage 1 winner and the driver in his debut, dropping the Hammah Cup Series race. We are joined by KBueno Racing's Steven Maggio. Steven, you got a copy with us?
Yes, sir.
All right, Steven. Well, it seems like you and Jaden are putting in the same fate. I guess the rub of the crystal ball says Steven Maggio is going to win Stage 1 in his debut, much like Jaden Porter did at Dover Motor Speedway. Tell us what you learned over the course of that first stage and how it feels to come out on top over 35 laps.
Well, what I learned is that track position is immensely important. Those guys had a lot fresher tires than me, and it's hard for them to go through the pack. Like if you make a move on the inside and it doesn't work, you're going to fall back because the outside's going to run a train on you. So you got to be really decisive with your moves, and you can't just kind of be willy-nilly or careless with it, because if you make one wrong move, you're going to the back. So definitely going to keep that in mind and just try to value track position as much as I can. And try to just take care of it. Still a lot of laps left.
And I want to talk more about the journey into this series, because KBueno Racing has really stomped on the scene very quickly. Jaden, Ethan, you immediately registered for the series a couple of weeks ago. Jaden puts up a big-time dominant win at Dover. Moreno has won a couple of poles. You're in this race tonight with a Stage 1 win. How cool is it to make an imprint into the series so quickly? I know you raced with some of the guys on Wednesday nights and across other leagues, but how cool is it to join this series and already start making an impact?
Yeah, it's cool. Just going to try to make a positive impact, Don't want to make don't want to make a bad name for myself early on. Not that I feel like I have in other leagues, but, new league, kind of a new start for most of these guys in here. So try to just, show that I'm fast and clean. Didn't really help that I accidentally kind of doored Rasta a little bit for the win of that stage, but wasn't sure if we were 3 wide or not. My spotter wasn't really giving me a good call on it. So, but yeah, just gonna try to show these guys that I'm fast and race everyone clean and be there at the end.
Well, so far it's a fast Chevrolet, and you win stage number 1. Congrats on the stage W, and best of luck on the next restart.
Thank you, guys.
So that is the number 97, Steven Maggio, stage 1 winner, but he will restart in position 7 after a couple of guys stay out. Several guys came in for fuel only, that being Moreno and Lawson Peel. Everyone else decided to take an effort for 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. We do want to correct that there is a third car that just came in for fuel only. That's the 13 Toyota Camry of Parker Bland, that UPS car that's on the outside of row number 3. She also elected fuel only on the most recent stop. And Justin Erb with the largest gamble of them all, since I do not want to stop down pit road. He will be in command at the beginning of stage number 2. From Long Pond, Pennsylvania.
Oh, there's a stack up on the bottom behind Sempion.
Outside of Erb, they'll stack up behind. Will that bring any trouble to turn 1?
He either missed a shift or something happened, but look at that big gap all the way back to Steven Stempion, and as he restarted in the top 10, and now he's down all the way almost to the 15th position for the 88 as Moreno looks to the inside of Erb, but is not going to be able to stay there off the corner. He stays in second. Harlow and Peel now make the move to the inside.
And Erb may just be the sitting duck as one of the only cars on an old set of Goodyear Eagles, as here comes Harlow. Peel peek to the inside through the tunnel turn for the first time off the restart. And so far, no dice for any of those cars. Peel will cling to the left side of Moreno Chevrolet, and they will be gridlocked entering turn 3. Parker Bland will put herself in the conversation through the top 5, and there's our first fresh tire car back in 6. Steven Maggio, the red Chevrolet, peeking through.
And now side by side, Peel and Moreno behind Ross Harlow. As here's the replay of Steven Stempian as we're approaching the restart zone. He's in 5th. And then right here, just you see the fire right there coming out of the exhaust pipes. I think he wasn't able to quite get it up into 3rd gear there, and that caused a big stack up behind him.
And a lot of times you see checkups off the restart because drivers are so antsy to get going that they have to hit the brakes or also run over the driver in front, and then that creates a huge domino effect. But for there, no go from Steven Stempian, no real jump or acceleration, so it took him a little bit to react and took him a bit to get up through the gears and enter full song. That will push the top 3 stage finisher into 9th place in the fight with Timothy Stubblefield. That's the Daytona winner from earlier this season, as Moreno looks up to the groove that he likes most here at Pocono. The very top in turn 3 gets him a good run off the final corner. He has his teammate about a half a car length back, or actually more than 5 car lengths down the front straightaway. Peel deals the block to the inside. He wants 2nd place in turn 1.
And he'll try to drive it in deep to clear the 16 and get the air away from the 16 and prevent any kind of crossover attempt. Harlow will be right on his bumper. He'll cross him over, go back to the inside, those two side by side, and whoever the 20 gives the draft to and whoever the 87 decides to go with is going to play a huge role. The 87 gives a bump to Peel going into the corner. It's going to give Peel a fighting chance on the outside.
But it's hard to keep that momentum up through the tunnel turn, and easily has to lay off the gas pedal to avoid slamming the outside wall. It's something that, you know, at Pocono Raceway, such a fine margin of error at that tunnel turn because it is the most narrow part of the raceway and you're going such a high rate of speed. And it is the fastest corner on the track overall, so you got to be really careful about where you pinpoint the race car. In the middle of the apex, Peel fell short. He drops back to 4th, picks up the help though from Steven Maggio, and a big gap back to Parker Bland. Easily in Banks, who hold on positions all the way back to 8th, and then a bit of a gap, about a 2nd worth, back to Timothy Stubblefield. Here comes Moreno. Inside look on Harlow for P2, and surprisingly enough, Francisco, Justin Erb, who has stayed out on 12-lap old tires, remains in the lead. Obviously helpful that everyone else behind are starting to fight for position, but Erb is doing a fantastic job of holding the fort down.
Well, I can't say that's exactly a surprising fact to me. We saw tires show that they didn't mean much, but we also saw this in 4-wide here a couple months ago. If you're able to hold the lead, even with the older tires, it just means so much to have the track position. Even Maggio was telling us is that the track position is going to matter so much because of how the draft works and how the pack is, how the track races. So if you have to just go ahead and try to pass cars, you just use up your tires. You heat them up, more importantly, than use them up. And it's just going to hurt you while running in that clean air. You don't really have to do all too much. You just have to make sure that they don't get to your inside, but specifically don't get to your outside. You can kind of hold them off if they go to your inside in turn 1. That seems to be not a low percentage move in that it's a bad move. It's just not one that's kind of working for these guys in these conditions. So unless you're going to clear the guy or try to get up there and clear that person on your outside, it's probably not worth it just diving the inside of turn 1.
Well, Erb will hold on. The gap about 0.2 of a second. Ross Harlow will remain in P2, and it's 1, 2, 3, Erb, Harlow, Moreno. Back to turn 3, Maggio has finally moved up to 4th. Not a ton of quick progress for the Stage 1 winner, but Maggio will still remain there with a chance to slowly move up to the field. And I think the most separation that we've seen over a green flag run throughout this entire race, past and maybe the 2nd or 3rd restart of the race in stage number 1. Well, there is a special paint scheme on board the number 20 of Justin Erb tonight. Usually in this series, you will see him wearing the orange, black, and white colors of Tony Stewart. You know, that kind of Home Depot paint scheme that you think of in your mind. That's usually what Justin Erb runs week in and week out. But it is a special paint scheme in honor of his late grandfather who passed away a couple of weeks ago. We first noted the news at Michigan International Speedway. That was the first race that he drove this special tribute paint scheme, and he ended up finishing 29th after getting into a big crash entering turn 1. But Justin still honoring his late great grandfather, who was a Korea veteran, earned himself a Purple Heart fighting for our country. So we just wanted to say formally a well wish to the Erb family And of course, our condolences and thoughts with Justin Erb and his family in this time of grieving. But he's making this car look fantastic at the front of this field, holding on to the lead over Ross Harlow. And in the background, in turn 3, you saw a big hit to the wall by Jason Hastings. The in-and-out Chevrolet destroyed off turn 3, and no yellow.
That front tire is destroyed. It won't turn. It's not rotating at all, so he has a long way to make it back to pit road. And because it's the right front, I don't expect him to spin, so he's going to limp it around and try to nurse it back. And there you see on the right side of the screen an update here for the 78, 11, and 45. And cars involved in incidents today, they're just inside the top 20, slowly just trying to bide their time and not try to use up anything of what they have left to make their way through the pack. But you see them all running together, trying to collectively make their way. That is Warren Kyle Keith trying to make the pass for P14 on Chris Progar.
And the common thread between those 3 drivers is that they did have at least one awry moment that got them either out of shape or into contact with the wall or other drivers. We noted Cedric Hunter's spin off of turn 3, the contact he suffered, damage to the right front of Stephen Harlow's Chevrolet. Warren Kyle Keith in that early race spin off of the tunnel turn that got him off of the race lead from Ross Harlow right behind him. So all 3 have found a bit of trouble here tonight from Pocono, and his track position is pretty hard to come by. They're just scrapping for whatever they can get at this juncture of the second stage tonight. And here at Pocono, any bit of damage is going to affect you catastrophically. Pocono is such a large track where the straightaways rely so much on aerodynamics that this car is very sensitive when it gets damaged. And, you know, even if it's a little crink to the right front, to the left front, any part of the race car, it is going to lose you miles per hour down the straightaway at top speed, even in the midst of the draft. So got to think about what the situation for Hunter and Harlow are like at this juncture of the race, spending time down pit road to fix their cars, but trying to stay with the lingering damage that is hurting them just a bit at this run.
You see up front, 16 is pulled away from Ethan Fonseca and tries to put the pressure on Justin Erb. Erb has been in that clean air and has the pace, because that's the other part. Yeah, clean air really helps, but if you're not running good lap times, if you're not able to run fast, it won't matter much. They'll just go right by you and put lap time together. But Erb definitely showing to have some good pace in his race car. Now the 16 gets a solid run off of turn 3, does not get into the wall. He's not doing the same thing we saw Moreno do earlier. He's not staying about half a car lane off. And that'll do is give you an exclusive draft to yourself without pushing you with the air of the car in front. If for those that super speedway race, you kind of understand that as soon as you close up to the car in front of you, there's a bubble of air that'll kind of push the car in front of you away. If you offset yourself, you don't have that bubble push happen as often or as severely. So by staying a car lane lower or higher, you don't give them that air push, and you still get about the same draft performance. So unlike a side draft, you just kind of don't push them away from you.
And just when you think this racing is all about physicality,
oh, and the yellow's out.
Mental game to it. Parker Bland was sideways off of turn 2. She saved it. The real spinner here, Robert A. Moyer Jr. bringing out another yellow flag, and our first of the second stage from Pocono. Much like Warren Kyle Keith's situation off the second corner, no damage to his Toyota, but the Category 5 esports driver will pick himself back up after a bit of a stumble there off the tunnel turn. Got a better look at how this all unfolded. This is right behind the battle for what was P18 on the racetrack. Moyer all by himself, going through the bumps, and it was contact, yeah, from Tony Kibbett, who washed up the track, got into the outside wall, and from there is where he tagged the trailing Robert A. Moyer Jr. car. So here's a better look from the aerial shot. There's a battle up the road by at least 5 car lengths or so. There's Tony Kibbett woeing up in turn 2, getting the wall, then getting Moyer Jr. down the racetrack, and that's what sends him for the spin. Yeah,
you can see he was trying to get off the wall, and unfortunately for Robert A. Moyer Jr., he went down half the racetrack into him to bring out that caution flag, and that's going to put us in a position strategy-wise where we could see some guys say, hey, we're not making any ground, let's bring it to pit road and see what we can do strategy front, because here's a fact. Stage 3 is 50 laps. You have to bring it down pit road at some point. So you know that between now and the checkered flag, no matter what, one pit stop remains, Justin Erb, he's going to need maybe another caution or two to really be safe fuel-wise, since he pitted a long time ago compared to most of the field, and there's a good bit of the field deciding to bring it down pit road now, as you see a couple of guys decide last second to stay out. But what's crucial about that is if you do bring it down pit road, at least right now, you can shorten your last pit stop by a good bit fuel-wise, and that could help you out with strategy, trying some different things to get you out in front.
Well, yeah, for sure. And with 25 laps to go in this second stage, we're going all the way to lap 75. So at least one pit stop here will confirm you making it to the checkered flag of stage number 2. You know, we have 100% fuel here with these NASCAR Next Gen stock cars in this series. So unlike the usual 75% that we encounter with a lot of other leagues across the iRacing service where, you know, you kind of get the numbers in your head. I think I have most of them memorized, the fuel window in my head. And here at Pocono, you can go maybe 25, 30 laps on a tank of fuel with 75%, 100%. It brings you into a very different realm of possibility, and Lawson is just going to give himself a bit more insurance here, possibly to extend his ability to stay out past stage number 2, but it will lose him a ton of track position. He'll be in 19th.
My math suggests 40 to 45 laps is pretty reasonable and realistic for a lot of these guys with the 100% fuel. So Lawson Peel, I don't see why he can't make it all the way to lap 95. And what that'll do means he doesn't have to fill the car all the way up to be able to make it all the way to lap 125. So, or alternatively, he can pit also at the stage end and take less fuel than everybody and cycle to the front. That's something that'll work. It'll give you the track position, but I think the fact that you have to pit under green under stage 3 and stay out anyways, and then pit under green and kind of get myself into an alternative strategy there, because at some point, especially in that third stage, I think we could get a long enough run. And so if you get into that alternative strategy, if the caution comes out, you're golden. You don't have to pit anymore, so you'll get to the front basically without having to ever pit again. So I think there's plenty of strategy options that could be worked into this race, and if it was me in that position, that's something I'd consider.
It's the magic of 100% fuel and the magic of what will be the longest run till the finish line at 50 laps scheduled for stage 3. But given when we get that caution flag, sometimes it's a little early and sometimes race control calls it, or if we do get a proper end to the stage, you have maybe 2 to 3 laps of wiggle room that will cut that run short. And should we get into a long green flag run, that'll make things even more interesting. Green flag pit stops is something I was sort of looking forward to seeing going into this Pocono race, because we know how much things change when that happens. But for right now, we will settle on a green flag restart at lap 53 with Justin Erb in control. Ross Harlow out in front in row number 1, but he will wait for the TOW Racing Chevrolet to go first. Steven Maggio and Moreno will occupy the second row once more tonight, so a BBR lockout in row 2. Race high 5th for Nixa, Missouri's Kip Easley for Drinkin' Bros Racing. A bit undercover in this race tonight, but the zone Kyle Busch-esque paint scheme trying to run for what would be another top 10 added to the list of a couple, of course, this season. So far, he's got 5, now 6 top 10s of the 2025 year. Very consistent campaign for Kip Easley. And then on the inside is Chicagoland winner and driver in the top 10 in point standings, Brandon Banks, who captured that one coveted little point after getting a top 10 at lap number 35. Remember, there is still a tire difference from Ross Harlow on back to the race leader. It's a 7-lap difference in favor of literally everyone else. Lawson Peel, who just came down pit road under the last caution flag, will lead the secondary group of cars on strategy from P20 on the running order. Lap 53, green. Here from Pocono, good jump from Justin Erb, but an even better one to stay equal by Ross Harlow. The 2 Chevrolets may be door-to-door as they chase for turn 1.
Side by side for the top position. The 16 gets to run there late to try and hang in there as best as he can. Has to deal with those bumps. And they're still side by side for the position. Erb will get the run off the corner. Harlow doesn't try too aggressively with the side draft, but he is there. And Moreno is going to try to fill in the gap. There's the side draft effort now by the 16. They're going to be even into turn 2.
And this is the first proper breakaway for Ross Harlow to get to the inside of the race leader. He had been such under fire
Here comes Moreno.
off the stage, or the recent caution, and it did not help Harlow's case to catch up to Herb Chevrolet, but he will clear and put himself back on the points. Moreno nearly gives the bumper to Herb Chevrolet entering turn 3, and the bunch up from second on back. Harlow ahead by 2 to 3 car lengths as they go back to turn 1. Maggio, Moreno, and company trying to sort themselves out in the run back to the corner. Brandon Banks, the sole car to the inside.
And he wasn't trying to do that, and you could tell because he decided to give the 20 that lane back so he can kind of make that up as they're Stempian with an aggressive move to slot in front of Maggio to move into 4th. There goes Kip Easley now to the inside of Maggio after that checkup. But quickly, you saw how much being single file and nose to tail like that really helps out your overall speed, because now Herb is back up to the 16 once again, trying to challenge for the top position.
And it singles everyone through. There's Stephen Maggio, the final car in the top 5. And they put a bit of a gap to Zachary Hall, who settled up in front of the secondary group. With Easley, Swavely, Bland, Banks, and the list continues. They're way out wide on the exit of the final corner, and Ross Harlow stays up front. Here comes Stempian, the fellow DTH teammate, to assist the TOW racing car of Justin Herb. Those two had been in close contact at Auto Club Speedway earlier this season, where Herb had led a season
through the middle
26 laps, and here comes Steven Stempian. Look through the inside. He'll take away 3rd momentarily. Moreno fights back with his teammate to help in Maggio.
I think he thought they were either 3 or was expecting some kind of 3-wide move with how high he ran in turn 1. That's not exactly something you want to do as the 97. Maggio gets into the back of Moreno there going into the corner. I don't think he expected Ethan to check up that much and makes the contact, but it actually works out well for both of them as Maggio gets up into 4th. And there's Moreno running the line. He's able to just go in so much deeper, and he nearly clears the 20 in turn 3 before they get off the corner. What a power move that was. Now Maggio gets to the outside.
The line that Moreno has liked the entire race pans out in his favor. He gets around the Home Depot military car, and Herb on a free fall to the inside. Here's Maggio to help, and our Charlie Byer Photography onboard camera with the man who has picked up 2 poles over his short and successful DTH Cup Series career. And he'll move to the outside as Maggio, his teammate, looks underneath. And so far, no money there for Maggio. He'll tuck back in line with obviously the eye set 3/10 behind the race leader of Ross Harlow, who will keep a keen eye on his rearview mirror and see what transpires behind him. But this is a positive situation for KBueno Racing, who haven't been in a situation much throughout the short tenure in this series to work straight up together. But in this track where draft matters so much, Maggio can sacrifice the gain track position momentarily to make Moreno get a better run off these corners. And look at everybody slapping the wall off turn 3. Nobody giving an inch.
And they can work together on these straightaways, so you're probably going to see in turn 1 more than anywhere else. They're going to run different lines so they don't get caught up in the dirty air and really hurt their tires or corner overall. You see the 97 peaks slower than Moreno. Moreno's going to get a little bit loose, but it actually won't hurt them all too much because it'll just allow Maggio to get closer, to push them closer to the 16. And they have a bit of a gap now back to Zachary Hall, so they have space to work with, and they can manage the gap forwards and backwards, but Moreno has a not too good of an exit there. It's actually going to hurt them on that instance. But Maggio going to play the team game. He's going to try to help, but Moreno goes to the bottom here in turn 3. Not a line he's ran often, but it actually gets the 16 pretty loose there, running the bottom. That could be something he tries to do again, because now it'll give them a chance to do something on this next lap.
And there's a look at where Lawson Peel settles inside the top 11. He just finally got into the top 10. He's got his teammate Brandon Banks in front of him. And mind you, Peel is the lone car, at least one of the several cars to come down pit road as of the recent yellow, and did tack on 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles and some fuel to go with it. So an alternate decision by the 4-time winner this season to get him in a pretty decent spot. He will help car number 5 down the back straightaway to the tunnel turn. Meanwhile, this is the closest that Moreno has been to the back bumper of Harlow over the course of this short stretch, and Zachary Hall has put himself as the 4th and final car over this very short group of race cars back to turn 3, and Harlow will have to play better defense here in stage 2.
He goes to the top after running the bottom on the previous lap, gets loose. Zachary Hall has a run now on Maggio. They'll be side by side for the third position as Maggio's trying to get up there to help his teammate. We'll see what Zachary Hall's able to do here in turn 1, but Moreno tried something different on that last lap, which I think worked out well for him, as there's Zachary Hall nearly makes contact with the 87, and it's going to let him go side by side with both of them, and he's right to the quarter panel. He is trying aggressively here to get past both of these guys, but it won't be to any avail. They'll just tandem together to get by both the 23, as once again nearly contact with the 87 and 97 in turn 2. Zachary Hall left in an awkward position there on the inside, and they're all driving away from Stemping as it looks like there's a spin as the 32 Richard Swavely goes around with Brandon Banks.
And he got tagged off turn 2. The Hemlock Toyota in trouble, and for the third straight caution off the tunnel turn, the driver who spins doesn't pick up that much damage to the inside wall, and there's a bit of a dent on the right rear of the race car, so a bit more damage than what we've seen from the other incidents there, but everyone sort of packed up there off of turn number 2, and that's where the secondary group of cars had clustered together here, Francisco. And here's the look to the inside. Swavely down the bottom alley underneath Kip Easley, and there is definite contact there. Worked the 32 up the racetrack, and Brandon Banks checked up, makes the contact, and there goes Swavely into the wall.
And Lawson Peel got a pretty significant piece of that, specifically with the front of his race car. He had some pretty big nose damage on his car that could require some extensive repairs.
And here's the perspective from the 4-time winner.
It happened just in front of him, and involved Kip Easley and Brandon Banks. Just a couple of his teammates, all of them got some kind of a piece of it. And I would say besides Swavely, Lawson Peel has a pretty big piece of damage from that incident right there.
And that will bring us under another caution here in stage number 2 and lap number 60. And you're right, for Peel, he's going to have to come down pit road just for the damage repair. He has moved up to 7th, but yeah, that does not spell any sort of positive word here. Yeah, I mean, we talked about the aerodynamic sensitivity here at Pocono. I mean, that's the last thing you'd want, and the last thing Peel can do if he remains out on track with this damage is lead a group of cars. That will hurt everyone around him the most, including himself. So it's a way of decision here, whether he wants to come down pit road and give up the track position, or if everyone else comes down, maybe he gets a saving grace in all of this. But here's the moment of cause out of turn 3, and yeah, Peel will be the lone car to come down pit road alongside 2 others that we see on screen. That's Brandon Banks, picked up damage there with the contact from Swavely, and the 48 car of Alex Muscarella, who will follow them down. A ton of front and nose damage as well, similar to Lawson, so we'll take them both maybe the same amount of time to get this all fixed.
Yeah, that's not a short repair either because of how sensitive the front is. I don't think it's going to be nearly as long as the four car there, but that's easily going to be well over a minute of repair. So I'm not too sure exactly how much that could equal. It varies, especially from the contact itself. It'll buff out and get back to a pretty good condition overall, but it's still going to require you to sit there and having to fix the thing. And if you don't get it within 30 seconds. I think that's a key point to mention. If your damage is within 30 seconds of optional damage and your steering is good, it's basically like you have a clean race car. If it's more than 30 seconds, I don't know what it is. It just drives so differently and you can feel it.
And it made it even worse if the steering is knocked out. And I don't think that's the case at all for Lawson Peel or Alex Muscarella or Brandon Banks. I think the damage is enough to where it will hamper them a bit, but it won't really structurally damage the race car from the inside. It'll probably affect the cosmetic look of it.
Well, they're exiting the pit road now, so I think it looks like they got it all repaired.
Yeah, thankfully. That's a 41-second stop, by the way, for Lawson Peel. That tells you the amount of time he spent on the lane just trying to figure out what was going on with the car. Alex Muscarella, by the way, spent 21 seconds. But again, this is all optional repair for the most part, and I think a hit like that wouldn't put any required damage on the board for either of those drivers. So you can obviously take control of your destiny and spend as much time as you decide on pit road. You don't have to fix the entirety of the damage if you don't want to. You can, go halfway through, go a third of it, 2/3 of it. You can just decide when the right time is for you to come out. A lot of times you see drivers get away from optional repair that is left because they will be lapped by the field, but because this track is so wide and so long at 2.5 miles, that's not really a concern unless you're really in there for maybe a minute and a half plus under green flag pace. So we will double the field up. Ross Harlow will be in command of the field. back to turn 1. Moreno will have the inside look with help from his teammate in Steven Maggio. Zachary Hall tried to make an effort for 3rd, but didn't really have the help to complete the pass. He will settle in 4th. Steven Stempian has worked back to a race-sitting top 5. Kip Easley in P6, and then the list goes on for the top 10. Some notable names to work their way up to the field. Warren Kyle Keith, despite the early hiccup off of turn 2, he is seemingly back in the game with a chance at stage points at lap 75. And as for everyone else, just figuring out where they're going to be, and that includes Lawson Peel, who is one of the many cars to come down pit road at the back. Sean Kalist will proverbially be the leader off of the pit lane alongside Chris Cabot back in 15th and 16th. That's row 8.
I will say, Kenneth, sometimes an incident like this, especially for someone like Lawson Peel, who was able to fix it all, if this race goes to the stage end and then he stays out, he can really have a green flag pit stop shortened enough that he doesn't have to sit there, maybe takes 2 tires or fuel only, not there for too long, exits pit road. He can exit pit road on a clean racetrack, put some really good lap times down, and just wait for the caution to come out. And if it doesn't, he has a short pit stop time compared to most of these drivers. I definitely think it would be in someone's best interest to try that out with just how long of a stage it is and with the strategy positions the way they're presented right now.
I mean, the obvious goal is to cut the amount of times on pit road as possible. You don't want to waste a lot of time down there, but strategy's still open in the books. Ross Harlow and Ethan Fonseca Moreno will lead us to the green flag. We are 53% of the way here at Pocono, which leads us to our Dave Busch 53 tribute. And there's a spinner off turn 3. It's Chris Cabot hard into the inside wall. Yellow flag waves at lap 64. And it was a tag from behind by Alex Muscarella. Sends the Dizzy Wrench Toyota into the wall hard from the back end of his Camry. There's a bit of the damage you saw there. Steven Maggio wasted no time off the restart to get the race lead. And we'll stack them up and do it again.
That was a big hit to the inside wall for the 25, because even though it wasn't head on into the wall itself, it could be some significant damage to his race just from the actual rate of impact, if you will. And it looks, if I had to take a guess at what happened there, Kenneth, it looks like the 48 thought the 25 was closer to the wall than they were, because they gradually just kind of came together, and 48 would look like he was caught off guard by the 25 all of a sudden being to his right front tire there.
Here's another look at it from the high-angle camera, and that's the silver and black 48 car that you're looking at on the inside of the racetrack. Yeah, you're right, Francisco. You hit the nail on the head. Thought that Cabot was farther out than he actually was, made the contact, and it's a dangerous part of the racetrack to get the quarter panel of a car in front of you. You send them going right into that inside wall, and we've seen at the pit road entry how dangerous that is. Even the wall that goes way under the pit road entry marker. But Cabot, instead of going head on, goes back first into the wall. That would give him a ton of damage on the rear spoiler of the race car. He will rejoin the field, and he will most likely take his efforts to pit road and try and repair that car. As for Muscarella, he escapes with no damage, but he will be the cause of the yellow, and will be right behind the iRacing official pace car once more. And if you're wondering why we did our Dave Busch tribute lap 53% of the way through the race, that's because we did not marker lap 53 and give the tribute on that lap. So in a way to make things up, we went 53% of the way through the race at lap 63, and so we end up with our Dave Busch tribute, a good friend of Steven Stempian for many years on the iRacing service. They painted cars together, raced with each other, and held a big-time Dave Busch tribute race at Michigan a while back that Steven Stempien took the checkered flag at and raced a paint scheme that Busch designed a couple of weeks ago at Michigan. And so we will be under the yellow flag. One car is hit pit road. And never mind, that was Justin Erb who was just peeking and trying to fake some other drivers in. We got a question in the YouTube chat as Chris Cabot hits pit road at the back. It is by the Dover Motor Speedway winner, Jaden Porter, who is missing out on this race tonight because he is in Talladega watching the real-life NASCAR Cup Series action, or was watching it earlier this afternoon. He asks us, who has been the dominant car? Francisco, I don't know if there's an answer to that because we've had a bunch of different leaders in this race. I don't know if any specific driver has commanded the field, at least in a very obvious way.
I can think of one driver who's been pretty dominant here today, Kenneth, and that's whoever's held the P1 position.
that's the safe corporate answer, I guess we can get there. But
it is true.
It is true. A bunch of these guys at the front have held position in the race lead. Maggio, of course, winning stage 1. Ross Harlow was aggressive to get the lead early in the first 3 laps of the race. Moreno has spent time at the front. Steven Stempien has spent time at the front. Warren Kyle Keith led a lap or 2. You know, the list continues. Several different guys have been up at the front. So to answer your question, Jaden, there has not been a dominant car of the night. But if you are rooting for your teammates, it's a good night to do so because Maggio was the winner of stage 1. And fresh off of our recent restart, he took the lead squared and away from Ross Harlow without a hesitation or resistance from either driver in that sequence. So Maggio will have control of the lead with his teammate Moreno back in row number 2 to give further assistance if Maggio does not get the best jump entering turn 1.
I do have some news. I'm not sure if you saw this, Kenneth, but a couple minutes ago, Ryan Preece and Joey Logano got disqualified from the Cup race, so they're going to be 38th and 39th after their P2 and P5 finishes, and that was almost his first career win for Ryan Preece. I think, in a way, just seeing how everything happened, you wouldn't want the disqualification, but at least I will say it's better that he finished second and got disqualified rather than winning and getting disqualified, so you wouldn't have the emotions of thinking you have your first win and then it goes away.
That's true, but it is still a bit of a dagger to Ryan Preece, who, you know, said in his interview after the race that if it weren't for RFK Racing, he would probably be still driving modifieds in Connecticut. So he was very thankful for the chance that he was gifted this season from RFK Racing to go full-time Cup racing with the 60 car.
He's done great.
No, he's done amazing. I mean, several races where he has stood out amongst the crowd, and he's put together some really great runs, finishes. I think back to Phoenix, which didn't end up being the best race for Preece over this year, but was a race where he had been on an alternate call with the soft compound tires that they used at the short track, and he had been ripping, cutting through the field, taking the race lead, leading a bunch of laps, had such a strong race car, and Preece is one of those guys, comes from those grassroots NASCAR racing styles of the modifieds and such. He's done great in the Cup Series in his short stint.
And you know, Kenneth, as well, Las Vegas was another second-place finish. I think it was second or third-place finish. But he had another great run there and had a chance to win at Vegas as well.
Yeah, that's true. And Jaden was there to see all the action at Talladega earlier this afternoon. So he got the look at the near photo finish between Austin Cindric, the race winner, and the driver who just now got disqualified from the news from NASCAR in Ryan Preece.
I do got to say, Jaden, make sure you're in the office tomorrow morning. I don't want no excuses.
Well, will he spend any of the late hours in Talladega Boulevard? Because it seems like that party doesn't stop in the infield.
Well, he has no more vacation days available. He's used it all up already.
Well, we're reporting Jaden back to the BBR offices straight up at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. I think I'm going to be asleep during that time, so I won't even make it as the boss. But green flag will wave at lap 68. We're past halfway here from Pocono. Steven Maggio will be the race leader with his teammate Moreno in tow behind for row number 2. Pace car is down. All eyes on Maggio, who will take the field running to turn 1 with a head of steam. Look at Moreno with the push from Steven Stempien will clear the 2 BBR Chevrolets before the corner, and Stempien looks underneath for third under Ross Harlow.
And that's a perfect restart to orchestrate with your teammates. They're 3 wide for 4th. He easily went flying in there trying to see if he can make a move, and now they're 3 wide for 4th as Stempien gets caught with Erb, and now Zachary Hall goes around the outside. But that's as good of a restart you can orchestrate by having each other nose to tail. You can count down the restart, really help your teammate get a launch out there and clear for second. and guarantee yourself a shot at the top 2 positions. And now the 16 and 87 go side by side for the second place position. Moreno had a poor turn 2, and now Ross Harlow attempts to try and make the pass on the inside. Moreno's going to run the outside, one of the better drivers at making that lane work. But since he's not immediately behind Maggio to get that draft, there's a spin. Justin Urban, Stephen Harlow goes spinning on the front stretch.
They go hard into the wall, yellow flag out instantaneously, and we saw it from the jump, getting hooked into the wall. And for Justin Herb, his night has been disastrously changed. Stephen Harlow has a torn up toe link, so his race may be done. If not, he'll be multiple laps down, but that is the damage assessed on a big time crash off the final corner. And I'm not sure if it resulted the same way that Chris Cabot's accident did off the final corner as well with Alex Muscarella. So take a peek there. Side by side, it's Steven Stempien who's on the outside, but it's going to be the contact here. I think Harlow might have just tried to clear himself, thinking he was good enough in distance to the back end of Herb's car, but that was clearly not the case.
Yeah, I think he was trying to slide into the gap that existed in front of Stempien behind Herb, but he was not clear there. You see it right here with the onboard. That when he gets loose, that probably didn't help the situation. But he tried to get in behind him and just not clear. A misjudgment by Stephen Harlow results in significant damage to himself and Justin Herb.
And there is the damage. You can tell from the left front of the race car. It's hard to tell from this wide angle, but the bumper is nearly gone, or the fender on the left side of the car, and that wheel is not moving. It's angled to the wrong direction, so the toe link is destroyed. That is several minutes of required repair on pit road. So Stephen Harlow's race has gone from sort of mid to a lot worse in the span of maybe 10 to 15 laps. And Harlow was in the same situation at Michigan International Speedway 2 weeks ago before our little Easter break. Ended up 15th in that race, so got as much as he could given the scenario, but after what was a 7th place starting spot and after being in the top 5 in stage 1 at Michigan, it was a big crash for Harlow entering the first corner late in the goings. And tonight the damage is much worse for the Project Hopner Chevrolet, who has been having this paint scheme for a little while to give awareness to Sue Hopner, the founder of the Project Hopner mission, to raise awareness to teen suicide and give them hope.
That left front tire is not rotating at all, and it's very much similar to the damage he had earlier in the race, but also the kind of damage you saw in Jason Hastings' car from earlier in this race. And Hastings on the racetrack, or at least he's still in pit road trying to take the damage repair. He hasn't called it quits quite yet. He's last of those registered. He's running in 23 laps down to the field. So Harlow, I think he's going to attempt to take as much of the damage repair as he possibly can, and as soon as he can get back out there, just make laps. It's going to be difficult. It's just when you have the tire not even rotating anymore like that, it's usually some kind of meatball flag, and you'll see how much time of required repair he has, and then getting the wheel back straight is going to probably not even have a chance to happen to the face unless he does it all in one sitting.
And he was swerving the car entering pit road, but that was not by design. That's because of the damage given to his car, and he has to back up into his stall to straighten things out. Ross Harlow and Ethan Fonseca Moreno, by the way, the front are in. Moreno does beat Harlow off the lane, and there's Stephen Harlow's reaction, taking off the gloves and just going to wait and see what happens as he just gets his car repaired after a pretty hard hit to the inside retaining wall. There's Maggio, the race leader, and that brings maybe 2 or 3 more cars on pit road. I'd say 4 in total. That includes the 32 machine of Richard Swavely, who is one of the several drivers giving us a camera with their onboard shot tonight. Well, that is Ross Harlow, but we will get a look at the Rick Man himself, who, funnily enough, was at a Hemlock concert last night and texted me out of the blue and saying, hey, would it be cool if I got a video of the guys saying, you know, you're watching the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series on the KBueno Racing Network, and lo and behold, he did. So the band Hemlock gives a tribute to our channel. We'll air that video at some point either throughout tonight's race or in the coverage throughout the rest of the season. Pretty cool, but there is Richard Swavely himself. Damage fixed on his Toyota Camry, so that's good news, but he will have to pick himself up from 16th in the running order.
How about that? That's great. I can't wait to see that myself for the Hemlock group giving a shout out to the KBueno Racing Network. That's appreciate that very much there, Mr. Richard Swavely. And I can't wait I got a couple concerts coming up myself here, Kenneth. I think I'm going to be going to We Seen this Saturday. He's going up to the Kaseya Center this upcoming weekend. And in about a month and a half, I'm going to the Metallica concert up in Tampa for both nights. And I have my eyes set on the Tampa show for Katy Perry. What do you have in store?
I don't have any concerts. I don't want to be the buzzkill, but I haven't been to as many concerts in my life. I definitely want to go to more. If there was a concert that I'd go to, you know, I hesitated on the GNX tour for Kendrick Lamar and SZA, and I'm pretty sure the Miami tickets are sold out beyond belief. And for any other artists, I would like JID to go on tour, but I think that's going to mean an album at some point, so I'll have to wait on the album probably for him to go on tour again. But really cool that you're going to a We Seen concert, number one, because he was part of the pre-race ceremonies at Homestead, Miami. He had been, you know, one of those people out at Homestead for the race. And
yeah,
it was pretty cool to see him there.
I saw him, and among other celebrities, I also saw Alexander from Hinted Isona. They were both there hanging out pre-race. I tried to get a picture with them, and the track president was like, "Oh, they're pretty busy right now." And from where I was standing, they didn't look that busy at all. But it is what it is.
Busy in the life of superstars compared to us plebeians. But
us civilians, if you will.
Well, we'll try to get this race restarted. Lap 73. And remember, we are just 3 laps away from the end of stage number 2, according to our SK Sim Racing race analysis. 40 laps, the duration of the second stage. And we go to lap 75. So just like the opening stage of the race, it is a short dash to the green and white checkered flag with Steven Maggio in the forefront of the picture. He will have control with Zachary Hall to the inside.
And we have a cloud cover on this racetrack. What's that going to do to how the track reacts to these cars now?
Well, just keep that in mind. Green flag raises with the final 3 on tap for stage 2. Look at the block in the background. Richard Swavely trying to stall Craig Parks' momentum at the back end of the field. Good jump by Maggio. Hall takes away second to the midway portion of turn 1.
And the battle for P10 in this stage is going to be interesting as well. Robert A. Moyer Jr. holds that spot. They're 3 wide behind him for now. It's going to be a hot battle as now Ross Harlow looks to try to take P10 away.
You'll look to the inside. That is again for the final stage point available. And through all of the hard work, Warren, Kyle Keith, and Cedric Hunter are back in position to get some good stage points and maybe even the win. And that includes car number 9 of Lawson Peel, who is up to 4th place, trying to pick up on the TOW Racing car of Chris Progar. He'll slip to the inside in turn 3. Hall within a car length up the road. Here comes Peel to the inside for 3rd.
A good move, and now they're going to be side by side the entire front straightaway. That's not going to help their shot at an attempted stage win. But we know Kip Easley's going to try to help his teammate up there in Lawson Peel. And how about Kip Easley with a good run here in stage number 2? Lawson Peel goes to the inside. Progar goes way up the racetrack. That's going to easily hand the 9 car the 3rd spot. Cedric Hunter now to the inside of Easley. All this going on just inside the top 10 position, and looking further back, there's Ross Harlow, who currently holds the final stage point position. He is catching up to a pack of Alex Muscarell and Tony Kivet in front of him. Fortunately for the 16, Robert A. Moore Jr. is falling back to the clutches of Ethan Fonseca, and there's a gap existing there, which is going to be difficult to close in a lap.
And when you don't have a lot of help from the back with drafting assistance, it's going to take a little while before you can catch up and make...
Oh, there's a contact at Easley and Progar.
They're touching off turn 3, but they're going to keep it stable. Onboard look on the left side of your screen with Steven Maggio. Still a 10th above Zachary Hall, now less than, entering turn 1.
Look at those pack of cars as they're all going to be battling behind Cedric Hunter. This is a battle for 4th. Progar goes way up the racetrack. He's going to lose out on those positions off of turn 1. He's going to be side by side with the 16 as there goes Zachary Hall. He's looking to the inside of Maggio into the tunnel turn.
This is the chance that Hall has through the high-speed tunnel turn. Does Maggio flinch in the secondary lane?
Oh, Hall gets tight.
Maggio's up there, and he will hold on to the spot. Now Hall plays defense on Peel. Peel's going to sling in under for second. Can he grab more in turn 3? Final charge through the last corner in stage number 2. Peel tries to dive it in through the apex, and he may have the quarter panel. He is there. Drag race to the start-finish line, and Steven Maggio, I believe, barely holds on to win the second stage from Pocono.
He got that by just a mere foot or two. what an effort to hang on there with the side draft from Lawson Peel to hang on for that stage win. That is great stuff and a great effort by both of those guys. 2 title contenders in the 4 Wide Racing Series gave us an excellent battle for the stage win. We got to get a second look at that.
And here's the second look at it from the right side of your screen. The launch from turn 1 by Zachary Hall was short off the tunnel turn, and then came the late challenger, Lawson Peel, dove it into the inside.
And look at the run he got through the center of the corner.
On the bottom of the corner, and he grabbed the quarter panel of Maggio, good enough to side draft him down the long front straightaway. And what is that, less than 2 feet? Less than a foot? Start-finish line, stage 2, victory, barely in the hands of Steven Maggio. Oh my goodness.
Incredible stuff. You can't make that stuff up, Kenneth. Come on.
You know, Ross Harlow said a couple of weeks ago, as we've talked to him through interviews with his race wins, his podiums, that this is the best racing that he's seen out of this group of guys in this inaugural Droppin the Hammah Cup Series campaign. Hard to disagree with that statement. Back-to-back near photo finishes in both stages, and just like the Dover Motor Speedway race that saw Jaden Porter capture his win in his debut, Maggio is right there to match him.
And now let's see what the pit strategies here are going to be under this caution, as it is going to be 48 laps to go when they get to the line. Not enough to require no pit stops in this final stage, assuming this is your final stop. I wouldn't be surprised if some cars decide to top off on fuel here, but certainly expect green flag pit stops at some point in this final run. But it's kind of what I said. If you pit here, you might consider splitting the stage, since you know you have to pit anyways during this final run, and maybe either take fuel only or take right sides and part of the fuel only when you pit is going to be just as crucial, since almost at any point in the final stage you can consider pitting, and it's actually probably better the earlier you pit, because you protect yourself against the caution, you guarantee the pit stop, and you can stay out and take the track position.
All right, well, here is decision time. Judgment day for the field. They'll come in this time at lap 77 to cross the line for lap 78, and through the long run, no surprise that we see basically everyone come in onto pit road. Ross Harlow will be the single car amongst maybe a group of 2 or 3 to stay out. I think Brandon Banks and Steven Stempian also join car number 16 out, and there are a couple other guys, Sean Kalist, Craig Parks, and Richard Swavely. But for the battle off of pit road, here is everyone led by Steven Maggio, the stage 1 and stage 2 victor. Run off pit road, Moreno has the jump on a 5.6 second stop. Fuel only.
Yeah, fuel only, and he took a look. There was a 3 wide run to the end there between the 23, the 13, and the 9 to the timing line. That was pretty close, kind of shades of cars, if you will, right there. Trying to get the still here.
Man, Lawson Peel is not getting away from photo finishes. They're stage 2 and just wins that fight off of pit road. Wow.
Yeah, he's allergic to not being included in photo finishes. Is what I've conducted here.
The Columbus, Mississippi native is no shortage of excitement here tonight from Pocono, and given that he has the most wins of anyone by 3 or more, he is obviously secured into the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series playoffs. He's got the chance to gamble a little bit and make good runs at it and be aggressive. He will be 7th when we come back to the green with a grand total of 5 cars that are willing to stay out inside 50 laps to go.
I will say this. I just looked into the KBueno Racing chat, if you will, Kenneth, and it looks like Jaden Porter had the pleasure of meeting Kyle Larson like we did.
Hey, that's awesome. And he was featured on the Hendrick Motorsports Instagram story with Alex Bowman signing a piece of merch that Jaden had in hand. We are now joined by the Stage 2 winner and stage sweeper, Steven Maggio. Steven, you got us?
Yes, sir.
All right, Steven. Well, you told us track position mattered more than anything for stage number 1. I think your heart was skipping a beat there at the end of stage number 2. Much closer of a finish. Tell us what happened there from your perspective and just how crazy that racing was to the end.
Yeah, the draft is just so strong. I mean, I feel like I'm putting together pretty good laps and just can't really do much to not let him catch me in that draft. And then I thought I would be all right on the outside, and I was, because I don't know if he got tight or loose, but he wasn't able to hold it as well on the bottom, and I just really underdrove 3, I guess, because I let Lawson get to my inside. And then it was just a drag race, and I was kind of pinned up against the wall, so I couldn't really do much, and I just ran out of track, I guess, so I was able to get that one. Then I slid through my pit stall for the second time today, so I gotta work on that because I lost 4 spots just now because of that. But yeah, we'll see what we can do here. I'm hoping we can go green. I mean, it would be fun if we could go green. We've had, you know, every time we start to get a little bit of a long run, we get a caution come out, but just play it by ear, I guess.
And Steven, I am sorry, Kenneth, I do have a question here, Steven, since I've thought about this really since looking at the final stage length. What is the fuel situation here looking for you?
I'm not sure yet. I guess it's going to depend on what happens with the cautions. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, much appreciated, Steven. Congrats on the stage 2 victory, and best of luck in our longest stage of the night.
Thank you. Have a good one.
So Steven locked in and ready to go, as the field will come off of turn number 3 to complete lap 80, or lap 79 to lap 80. That'll make it 45 laps to go, with Ross Harlow and Brandon Banks on the front row. Remember, your top 5 did not come down the pit lane. So we'll see how they last on an old set of Goodyear Eagles, on a different strategy with fuel as well, as we get into the longest stage of the night. Stage 3 underway from the tricky triangle, and the DTH teammates on the inside work in cohesion. Stempian will help Harlow get the advantage to turn 1.
So the teammates working together like you would expect them to on a restart, and they clear for the top positions. Lawson Peel moves up into the 5th position as Moreno behind him tries to get up into 6th. He'll have Zachary Hall trying to creep up behind him as they try to get past the 90 of Sean Kalis. And now Richard Swavely, Brandon Banks will try to battle for the 3rd position. And we'll see what the strategy is for most of these guys in this final stage. Do they try to concede to the fact that pit strategy is going to be the way to go? Or are they going to try and battle it out for the track position? We see it's hard to come by on the racetrack to make up positions and get those passes. So strategy could be the way to go as early as 5 laps from now.
Lawson Peel back in P5 is the first car on 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles, about 2 laps deep. So he'll move to the outside, help his teammate Brandon Banks down the long straightaway. Swavely, and now under heavy fire. It's going to be a freight train from the outside, and Swavely just needs enough space to clear, and he does. But he will swap to the outside. Moreno and Hall will take it side by side. They're in the heated battle for 6th place off of turn 1. And just like we noted earlier on in this race, it has been a little more of a process for the fresh tire cars to move up to the field. It definitely is a good thing for you to have fresh tires compared to other guys, and you do end up working up to the field, but it just takes you so much longer than you'd see at a lot of other speedways and tracks that we'll see over the course of the calendar year through the regular season and in the middle of these playoffs. And you can see it's exemplary here with Peel, Moreno, and now even a bit of Zachary Hall. They're just starting to get around the first old tire car in Richard Swavely, but still no gain on Brandon Banks, who holds on to the final spot of the podium. Single file all the way down, Harlow in control.
And see the top 4 kind of put a little bit of a gap on Ethan Fonseca, who had to work his way around Richard Swavely, but now he's cleared him and tries to close it towards the front. Here's the onboard with Steven Stempian in the P2 position. He's in a prime spot to have a solid run here, and with how many upsets he's had this season and how close he's been to race wins, I wonder how much he thinks back to Las Vegas and the chance he had to win on that late restart, losing out to Lawson Peel in that one. If he finds himself in a late race restart with the chance to win this race, you know he's going to be thinking about that race and trying to use what he learned there to process into that. But right now, running in P2 is in a good chance to try and perform.
And you know, a lot of times you see the sweetness of victory be a result of many different situations of heartbreak, agony, and defeat. And for Steven, there has been a fair share of them over the course of this inaugural DTH Cup Series season. You think of Las Vegas that you mentioned, Francisco, but key races that could have easily been very different for the Bethune, Massachusetts native include New Hampshire and Michigan. Both races that he circled on the calendar, knowing that he would be a threat to be reckoned with. And he did have a fast race car in both races, but problem was he did not have the luck. He ended up in poor situations. Dover 1-2, where with 50 laps to go, he was fighting for the lead, came down pit road and hit the pit road barrels, which has since become a little bit of a joke between the drivers in the series, just to tease Steven a little bit, but we know just how heartbreaking that end of the race was for him in an event where he thought he would be the race winner after many laps led and a ton of good pace. So tonight could be the switch around that Stepien needs to gain some positive momentum entering the final 4 regular season races, which includes, tonight at Pocono, Nashville, Gateway, and Daytona to close out and give us the 16 that'll run for the playoffs. Stepien is one of those guys who, for right now, is confirmed points-wise. He's done very well for himself for Francisco. Nothing compares to a race victory.
And that's exactly what all he's been talking about, is just getting that race win. He knows his ability to get points and get good results and get those stage points and stage wins. He basically counts on it from his ability to go out there and be successful on the racetrack, but he wants that race win more than anything. To just be successful, be the top guy, if you will. And that's what's going to allow him to race against Lawson Field for a championship during the playoffs. And you see right now, he is slowly closing the gap in on Ross Harlow, and we'll see how he decides to play this, because Brandon Banks is only about a couple tenths behind, and now Lawson Peel is working with Banks. So it's basically 2 of the Droppin the Hammah racing cars that are going to be out front versus 2 Drinking Bros racing cars, and then a KBueno Racing car of Ethan Fonseca Moreno, whilst his teammate has not really made much progress. You look at the 97 Steven Maggio, he's up to 9th, but he's not in the same proximity as Ethan. So it could be a 3-way battle of teammates in pairs.
Here's the Charlie Bauer Photography onboard camera with the race leader. 36 laps and counting led for Ross Harlow tonight. He has been so strong, and this is the strongest outing we've seen from him since his last appearance in the calendar. That's Dover Motor Speedway, where he nearly won Stage 2, got it ripped away from him from Jaden Porter in those waiting laps. And tonight is the moment where he searches to be the only other driver to win more than one race this season and put himself in at least some reaching distance with Lawson Peel win-wise, but he's got a lot of pressure on the rearview mirror. Team Aiden Stepien, though, won't make it too hard because, like you said, Francisco, lots of pace from third on back with Banks and Peel, who for right now are not electing to go individual ways. They are going to stay together, and then everyone else single file as the field separates a little bit. That's something that Steven just told us there under the caution flag after running Stage 2. He wants a long green flag run because you get moments like this. Sure, the draft still matters, but you will have much more of the skill dependent on the driver, and that makes a difference over the course of the race. When the tires are worn out, when the field is separated, and when you have a track like this that challenges many with the super hot track temperature we face tonight. So it's only a matter of time whether Stage 3 gives us the longest run of the evening. Nice battle for 11th on the track. Parker Bland, Alex Muscarella just outside of the top 10.
You mentioned the track temperature there, Kenneth, and we've actually had a pretty decent drop in track temp since the race started. When we took the green flag, it was about 103 degrees, and as we sit right now, it's 87 out there. So pretty interesting. The track is cooling off, and it could cool off more between now and the checkered flag, which is going to change the handling of this race car. And possibly the strategy you want to do is Moreno has a moment off of turn 2, loses ground to Zachary Hall after dropping the position to him, and now Warren Cal Keith is all over the back bumper of the 87.
Well, speaking of strategy, we have Jaden Porter back in our chat asking another question. This one regards the fuel window, and Francisco, I'm just going to ask you this question because I know you deal more with math than I do on a daily basis. So is there a proper fuel window here, and if so, what's that marker for the guys at the front?
I'm the fuel B word, if you will. So I will say that these guys are extremely tight. As actually Moreno's going to get turned here by the 78, and he saves it.
Had a contact from the rear end of the 78 car and a beautiful save for Moreno. That's in the highlight reel for sure. Second straight week that Moreno has to save the car, but he will lose all the track position, and Richard Swavely up the road nearly takes it 3 abreast underneath Steven Maggio. That's for 8th place. And hard into the wall goes Kip Easley in the background.
Oh, and he's in the middle of the racetrack. Progar gets into him. Progar slams the wall, and he has some big damage to his race car. He's going to pull it over and call it quits.
And will that
and that brings out a caution
flag? Yes, it does. So the green flag does not last more
interesting choice there
than 10 or so laps.
Interesting decision to bring out the caution despite no one really going around. It looked like it was mostly cars bouncing off the wall, but nobody really going around, and the admins decide to throw a caution there. That's going to allow these guys to pit here and get to the end of the race on fuel.
So here's a better look at what transpired between Keith and Moreno entering turn 1. I mean, Keith just wanted the inside here. And
he was there.
Enough through the apex, but he grabs the quarter panel of Moreno, and it's, you know, a slight enough of contact that Moreno can save that. It is not as much of a volatile hit, but Moreno does save it. And then up the road, there's a ton of stuff going on. Kip easily right behind Moreno is trying to get around him. This starts the bit of the accident here.
Gets hit the apron.
And Moreno gets loose into Easley, and as Easley comes down the track, Herb goes by. Chris Progar is there. He hits the wall, and that's a suspension killed, so he doesn't have any steering for the rest of it. I think the caution comes out, Francisco, because iRacing with Pocono throws yellows, even if you stop on the inside of the apron, but I'm guessing if iRacing didn't cause it, race control said, yeah, that's enough.
Yeah, cautions have been thrown by race control this whole evening. I tend to double check that usually after a caution just to be able to make sure on that front whether it was something that iRacing determined as a caution or if the admins decided to throw it just as a double checking measure for us. And that was one where the admins decided that that was enough for a caution. And as expected, the entire field is on pit road since you can get to the end of the race here.
So the field is in. And lap 90, 35 to go.
And that's actually why I thought pitting under green before as early as possible could be a good situation because you wouldn't lose a lap. You could have stayed out right here, and you would have been in the race lead.
So here's everyone on pit road, and we'll take a look at how this all unfolds as everyone comes off. We should expect 4 fresh tires and fuel to make it to the end, and this may be the final pit stop. Here comes Maggio, nose ahead, in front.
And I think that's 2 tires. Indeed, 2 tires for him. A 9.0 second pit stop. Paul 9.4. That's probably the difference in the top position right now. And Cedric Hunter 9.9 for himself there as well. First on 4 tires is Ross Harlow, then Steven Stempion and Banks. Double field 6.6. Fuel only for the 94 machine. And just looking all up and down pit road, 87 of Ethan Fonseca Moreno still sits on pit road, possibly getting some damage repair. He did hit the wall and Kip Easley pretty hard. Easley with some bigger damage to his right front. Sits on pit road as well. So does Cody Kivett as he brings it back down pit road once again. So we'll see 19 cars on the lead lap as it stands right now. I think it's tough to say if anybody's quite out of it, just seeing the craziness that has been of the second stage in particular. And now that everybody knows they can get to the end of the race on fuel, what that means as far as trying to go for the track position, no more strategy.
So Steven Maggio will lead us back as the stage sweeper looking for his first career victory. And as we get into the last stage of this race, you won't want to miss a thing. Coverage of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series on the KBueno Racing Network continues on the other side.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Back live from the virtual Pocono Raceway, race number 11 of the inaugural Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season. Alongside Francisco Bacalhau, I'm Kenneth Bueno. Thank you so much for joining us on a Sunday night, fresh off of a crazy Talladega Superspeedway race. And tonight we've seen our fair share of chaos. Caution inside, 30 laps to go. And so we will try and finish this race, or rather outside of 30 laps to go, with Steven Maggio, who's won both stages tonight, in command of the field. Zachary Hall to respond on the inside lane. He's got help from his Category 5 Esports teammate of Cedric Hunter and Ross Harlow on the outside to give chase to Maggio entering turn 1. Had a bunch of guys come down pit road lately. Does that change the call here? Green flag raises from Pocono, and everyone chases to turn 1. Maggio on 2 tires, Harlow on 4. Entering the first corner, it's second place, side by side, not decided yet.
And he stays clear for the top position, Maggio, after that good restart there. And they're going to be racing all over the back of the pack. You see single file mostly, but the 16, Ross Harlow breaks out to try and pass the 23 of Zachary Hall side by side in the tunnel turn. We'll see what Cedric Hunter's able to do behind all of this, as Harlow and the 23 remain side by side. He has a moment off the corner, but that's all going to help Maggio out in front.
Remember, the 45 is going to play teammate here. He's going to work with Zachary Hall on the outside. And like we've seen before, in this race, the top side off the straightaways usually has the best case situation off of these corners, and down this super long straightaway, Hunter can go right on the back bumper of Hall and clear them for second and third. So Cat 5 Esports right in the mix of things. They were in control at one point in the top 5. Hall nearly had the stage victory and lost all momentum off the tunnel turn right underneath Maggio, and it let Lawson Peel slip through the cracks to get a photo finish situation at the end of lap number 75. Hall this time once more, the North Carolinian searching for his first career DTH Cup win with a 2-time stage winner and his teammate Hunter in chase.
Got a big gap to try to close here. And he's going to need some help, but it's not impossible to make this happen. We got plenty of ways to go in this race. And you see, he's going to continue to close the gap, especially on this straightaway. He has Cedric Hunter now in tow to help him out. And you see already Maggio starting to try to break the draft. He doesn't want them closing in as fast as possible. He's able to break the draft. It eliminates the amount he can gain on the straightaways because they all just kind of scrub off speed, pacing him down, and it makes it less effective because it's not there in a consistent way as if he were to stay here. So if he wanted to, he can drift down a little bit. You see him kind of do that. And it's not going to help the 23 as much, though he's still able to gain pretty significantly. So as soon as Zachary Hall gets up to the back of him, it's going to be a question of what does he do in the corners to try and help his case.
And how does Cedric Hunter play a role in all this? Because we know he's going to help, but if he's under fire from Ross Harlow, things may change in a very quick hurry. We've got a ton of guys still within striking distance inside the top 10. There's the blue, red, and white Chevrolet of Brandon Banks, who's getting into his groove tonight. He's been rather consistent as of this race so far. Warren Kyle Keat, who started on the pole, had to work his way back to the front after being in the middle of the field and got his way through to P6. Lawson Peel, of course, one of the strongest cars of the night, back in 7th. Steven Stempian, a little quiet as of late, but he's back in 8th. And then a big-time gap to Justin Urban, Timothy Stubblefield, who are those final drivers in the top 10. And now, off turn 1 is a great exit for Zachary Hall. He can make a look to the inside work, maybe up top with help from Hunter, but there's a bit more distance separating the two. The 23 thought about it, but he did not fling his Toyota to the inside yet.
It's just difficult to make that inside move stick, especially if you don't have any immediate help. You just have to have a lot of overspeed and carry that through the corner to just be able to clear the guy off the corner and not really cost yourself and both of you guys the position because of the amount of momentum you lose by running side by side here. So we'll see what Hall does. You see him run lower than Maggio. He'll close the gap in and be in prime position to side draft. It's going to be tough for him to get to the inside or outside here for the tunnel turn, but that's a corner that makes or breaks your entire lap and your entire attack phase. So you see him back up here to try and run through the center better. He runs lower, and that was actually a pretty good line, but it's not good enough to make any kind of attempt here for turn 3.
Great look from the rear end of Steven Maggio's Chevrolet and seeing what Hall is eyeing down specifically just to get around. And he's
got a good run here
from Cedric Hunter. Great run through turn 3. Nearly made contact with the bumper of Maggio's car, but the two leaders will be door-to-door entering turn 1, side drafting each other to get every bit of an advantage down to turn 1. Does Hall have him here?
No, he's not trying to dive it in too deep, and what a run by Maggio on the outside to carry the momentum with him, and he clears him once again.
And Zachary Hall tries again to get right back around. Steven Maggio failed attempt number 2 after the second stage finish off of this corner right here. And the last thing that Zachary Hall wants to encounter is another
run.
runner-up finish. He's been second in 3 consecutive weeks from late February to early March and had a top 6 run at Dover after starting 22nd. Hall takes a peek underneath again. This time he will have a bit more help from the back end with his teammate Cedric Hunter. So it may be just a matter of what the teammate can do to influence this battle. Still decided in favor of Steven.
He had such a great run off of turn 3, kind of using the line that Moreno used earlier, kind of took some notes from what he was able to do there and applied it there. But you can tell that the 23 and 45, at least in this stage, are faster or willing to run faster than the 97, and now he's going to have the help. We'll see if he decides to make a late lunge here into turn 2. Does not appear so. He's going to play it patient, knowing that he has a good advantage, but that's a great corner by Maggio, despite the pressure being stacked up with him. The 23 continues to try and stay on his bumper, stack that air up, and watch how they run all different lines here. The 23 is going to try to get the 97 loose, and he'll have some help down this front straightaway. He could make a chance into turn 1.
And what it's done is accordioned the field together all the way back to the 9th place car of Justin Erb, who within this group is about a second and a half down the road from the race leader in Maggio. So while there was a bit more separation between Hall, Maggio, and the rest of the field, that has since is gone and away, and Cedric Hunter can play a bigger role in this, but so can Ross Harlow, so can Brandon Banks. Any little mistake is going to bring another driver into the foreground, so got to be really careful. Pinpoint accurate if you're the North Carolinian of Hall. Still trying to find a crack in Maggio's armor, but for right now, the defense, studious.
Oh, Maggio loose.
Maggio's loose off turn 2. Here comes Hall again for the lead.
A great side draft effort. He has the nose out in front, and he's going to try to drive it in deep, but Maggio has ran this line. He knows what to do. He gets him loose on the bottom, and he should clear him off of turn 3 again.
But he smacks the wall, so it may lose him a couple miles an hour, and Maggio nearly gives up the outside. That could have been very dangerous down the straightaway, especially with the help from the Category 5 Esports teammate of the pink Cedric Hunter machine. Thankfully, Maggio blocks it off in enough time. He holds on to the lead. But the question really is for how long and where does Zachary Hall change his approach? He's had several great corners, several good exit speeds, but he hasn't been doing much with it. Hall this time a good exit off 1, but he doesn't peek to the inside. He'll stay within the grasp of the race leader, and your top 3 covered by only 2 car lengths.
Another good run. He's been able to get him off of turn 2 the last couple laps. He gets to the inside once again, has a run. He's nosing out in front, but he's not trying to take it too deep into the corner. You see the 97 power through, but he drifts up a little bit. They'll be side by side down the front straightaway.
And there, crucially, is Cedric Hunter, who wants to go up high.
He's going to help him.
But there he goes. Crucial help. The 2 Toyotas will rocket to the inside. No help from Steven Maggio yet. Ross Harlow will get there, but it'll be too late. Zachary Hall, new race leader from Pocono.
And how will Ross Harlow play a role if he's able to move up into 3rd? If Maggio tries to retaliate and take the lead back, and it looks like Harlow will get to the outside of Hunter. So now the 23 isn't going to have that help if Maggio mounts a charge and saying, yeah, I got my teammates to have my back. Maggio now has someone who has nothing to do with those 23 and 45 cars. He's on his own right, and he's going to help whoever is going to give him a better chance at this win.
And he may be under further fire through this top 5. Thankfully, he stays in line. Brandon Banks is not there yet to make a move, and he's got his teammate Lawson Peel in the tracks. Maggio remains at a car
great
lane,
corner.
He's not going to give away this lead just yet. Top 9 still within 1.5 seconds. Brandon Banks and Lawson Peel peek the inside of Hunter, deals the block in turn 1. They'll wiggle down the straightaway, and here comes Banks inside look for 4th.
Slowly but surely, Drinking Bros Racing creeping their way closer to the front at the hands of Brandon Banks and Lawson Peel. Banks has a moment off of turn 1, but Peel's there to give him the shove down the straightaway to continue the fight going. Both of these could find themselves battling for the win here inside of 20 laps to go in a couple laps time as Hall goes in deep to turn 2, but he hangs on. All of this as they're starting to drift away from the 45 of Cedric Hunter, who now continues to hold up the Drinking Bros Racing duo. And there's the onboard of Ross Harlow as he now sits in P3 watching Maggio and Hall fight for the top spot.
Sponsored by Charlie Byer Photography. Great look from the front end of the Chevrolet. And Harlow may be in some of the best situations here, given that he's that third car. He can watch Maggio and Hall do all they want for the race lead, and Harlow can try and make a slingshot occur. The only problem is he has a teammate of the race leader right behind him in Cedric Hunter, so there may not be the extra assistance that Harlow needs, the extra oomph that will get him to the front of this field, but for right now, he remains in third. Great chance inside 22 laps to go, and this is exactly the sweet spot that Maggio and possibly plenty others wanted. A green flag run where there's a lot more separation and the draft still matters, but it's definitely less exacerbated than it would be if everyone was still within grasp. There's Brandon Banks in the battle for 5th place, and Lawson Peel will make a move to the outside. Switch over for the DBR Chevrolets.
They're swapping here because Peel has been trying to help Banks get by the 45, and he's been unable to do so. So now they're going to try to see if they could get Peel in front of the 45 to see if he has anything for those race leaders.
And Banks earlier in this race had been on the old tire strategy that kind of worked out for the South Carolinian from Myrtle Beach. And thankfully with that last caution, everyone got on the same foot. So no one is on an alternate strategy right now. If we end up with a late race caution, that is up for deciding with how long of a run we've had now. 2 tires, 4 tires, no tires. It's all up for grabs. And we know that Maggio has been very popular with the 2-tire decision. And even then, his last stop on pit road was 2 tires. It got him out front. Zachary Hall with the same call at 9.1, 9.4 seconds in the lane. Ross Harlow is the only guy in the top 4 to have picked up 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles on the last yellow flag stop. 21 laps to go from the tricky triangle, and Zachary Hall is starting to pull away. 0.2 of a second in the last time by, just a hair faster than Steven Maggio. But is Steven building up a run and trying to wait for the right moment?
And that's what I was thinking about earlier when these two were reversed in their running position, is sometimes you just want to back up more if you haven't been able to make that move and just get some forward momentum, because if you're sitting right there, you're heating up your tires, you're getting frustrated, and you probably don't see a possible attack window that you could if you were coming from a little bit far back. So if you're Maggio, maybe back up. He doesn't have much room to do so. You see he gets the wall, now the 16 side by side with him. If he was able to back up maybe just 1 or 2 car lengths without giving up the inside position like that, it just gives him an opportunity to try something different. You see the 16 he gets loose, and now it's going to allow Lawson Peel to make a run who gets loose as well, but the 9 has pretty big momentum. He's going to look to the inside.
And that could have lost them more time to the race leader, because Harlow had spent a lot of that time pushing Maggio up the racetrack, and they washed up, lost a couple miles an hour, it shaved off their race cars, and here comes the Napa Auto Care Chevrolet. Quick and easy move made for 3rd place. Harlow has the chance to respond and make the crossover attempt off of turn 1.
There goes.
He'll take the offer, go to the inside, and battle for the podium underway.
And we'll see Hunter decides for now to go with Peel as they're both closing in on Maggio. And the 16 with the later braking point than the 9 to get the nose out in front of the tunnel turn. And you see the contact there. Peel was able to keep the momentum wound up on the outside, but Harlow's not going to give this one up easily. We know he's putting up a great defense effort, but there's Peel running that outside lane. You're able to just carry so much more speed up there in that 3rd lane, and he more than clears the 16, and now he has his sights set on Steven Maggio.
And for Peel, it seems like tonight, turn 3 has been his bread and butter. I mean, from off of stage number 2 in that final lap, how great of a run he got through the center of that corner. It's such a hard part of the racetrack to get the car rotated with enough throttle input to stay fast, but Peel has been successful for most of this race, and a lot of that has come from the turn 3 speed that he carries off the corner. Helps him with a good run to the 1st corner now. We'll see if it changes as he catches up to Steven Maggio, and if he decides to go hand in hand with the fellow competitor that he races with also on Wednesday nights in the 4-Wide Racing Series, to at least get the common goal of reaching Zachary Hall's Toyota Camry. And for Hall, who's in search of his first career, dropping the Hammah Cup Series win after Auto Club in that head-to-head fight under strategy with Lawson Peel that he lost, he was still happy with the runner-up finish. He had told us how excited he was to get Category 5 Esports on the podium and to get a good run, which at that moment had been his best race of the season, and then followed that up with a runner-up finish at Chicagoland, and then followed up with a finish of 2nd place at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. So by that time, he had gotten a little tired of finishing second. It got a little more bittersweet with each and every passing race. And Hall, in search of win number 1, is in another position where he can break the curse and get the first win.
And 2 of those second-place finishes were to that guy in third, Lawson Field, who's been mounting a charge here. And I can assure you this, Zachary Hall, of course, does not want to finish second again, but he certainly doesn't want to finish second to Lawson Field for the 3rd time.
I think that would be a sour note to everyone else in the field, because it's Lawson Peel winning for the 5th time. If he can accomplish that, and for the first time, it would be 2 in a row. If he can get that concluded.
He had
a wonderful run through turn 3. It got him the inside of Maggio on the final lap of stage 2. It will get him the inside of Steven Maggio off of this corner with 17 laps to go. Fight for second, ignited. Lawson Peel to the inside in 1.
Oh, but he drifts up the racetrack, and he almost gets into Maggio, forces Maggio to have to readjust his line, so they're going to lose a little bit of time here. But look at Ross Harlow, gets to the outside of Peel. He's going to push the 97 down the straightaway, and Lawson Peel will now lose the 3rd spot.
Yep, lost track position, but he had to give that up. There was no way he was going to continuously fight Harlow the entire length of the back straightaway. He'll hit the reset button and try again. That's the magic thing that we've seen here at Pocono. Plenty of second chances.
And look at Harlow help Maggio.
Given to others, Harlow will get the push to Maggio, and that's the closest that the 97 car has been to the 23 over this one since he got past. Final corner, does Maggio flinch? No, he doesn't. Single file back to turn 1.
Hall's been getting loose the last couple of laps off of turn 3, but Maggio's just not been able to really step up and take advantage of it. At what point does the 16 decide he's going to try and do it himself to get around the 97?
Onboard look for Maggio. Squeaking in the second line just to get a bit of that clean air, extra rotation through the corner, and then turn 2, which
they're gonna have a run
to escape dirty air. The turbulent wake from the 23 car, better gear upshift for Steven Maggio, nearly deers the bumper there in turn number 2, and Hall is loose quite a bit, but Maggio falls back. Not one of Maggio's best corners there.
There goes Harlow.
And Harlow to the inside for second.
It kind of gave him a bump. That's what made the contact almost happen with Hall, but now they're going to remain side by side off of turn 3, and that's going to help the 23 pull away. The 16 gets loose momentarily. He's going to tuck in behind the 97. Now Peel goes to the bottom.
I mean, he looked under for a moment, didn't have enough momentum. He could swing into turn 1, which is kind of a hard braking zone. Harlow is there. Bottom look for second place. Reminder, none of them have been able to make a move on Zachary Hill since the drop of the green flag and since he took the lead. Cedric Hunter in this move. Warren Kyle Keith, Steven Stempy, Brandon Banks among a group of 8 within 7/10 of a second. It is that close coming to 14 to go.
And I'm telling you, at one of these laps, there's going to be a crash that happens going into turn 2. They keep bumping each other going into the corner like that, into the braking zone. At some point, someone's just going to run one of these guys into the car in front, and it's going to result in either second or the race leader going into the outside wall.
And again, Harlow tries to push Maggio up the racetrack, just looking to slightly nudge him out of the way. But it has not worked. Nose to tail between the three Chevrolets. Does anyone poke under into turn 1? Answer will be no, but Harlow has tried several times in and out. Maggio takes the tertiary lane just like his teammate Moreno did, but it won't work. Here comes Harlow, look to the inside for second down the straightaway, and who budges from the tunnel turn?
Can't run that high in turn 1. There's just not enough grip up there, and who Peel decides to help with, and he breaks early. Maggio's going to really pin the 16 down low. He doesn't exactly have a great corner himself, but he clears the 16, which is really all he needs. If he can get a good turn 3 exit, he can continue to mount the charge, but you can definitely tell he's holding up those cars behind him right now. But they also keep trying to make the move for P2 as soon as they get right up to the back bumper of the 23. So as soon as they catch him, they race each other. Can't really get by him doing that.
And now here's Warren Kyle Keith. Tried at 5th place underneath Cedric Hunter in turn 3. No avail. Steven Stempy in the rearview mirror behind this Target Toyota Camry, who has now 3 career poles in his Droppin the Hammah inaugural season. The most recent obviously coming tonight on the front row. And fell back quickly through the top 5, but sort of regained the track position slowly midway through the race. And I think at stage 3, he's found a second breath of life here. The 78 car and the St. Augustine, Florida native is going to try his best to pick up. And I think when you have a group of cars this closely matched together, inside 13 laps to go. If a caution comes out, obviously you're going to bunch everybody together, but for the most part, even if this stays green, I don't see a moment where somebody makes a mistake and there won't be anyone for the taking immediately after. I mean, these cars are close enough to the point where even 8th place Brandon Banks, a second and 2/10 behind the race leader, still theoretically has a shot, given how close everyone is.
Yeah, and Justin Erb, who was attached to this group, is kind of filling about 2 seconds behind the main group, so he's not too far behind. If it really stacks up a couple cars, a few more, Cal Keith has some trouble there. But now Harlow and Maggio are once again nose to tail, approaching the braking zone for turn 2, and it's just they keep catching Hall. As you see, Hall gets the bumper there in the tunnel turn. He might get it again, nearly gets it again, and Maggio has to check up. Now him and Harlow go side by side, and that's what I was talking about. They go 3 wide. They keep catching Hall at like the worst possible time. You can't really make a move. Especially you wouldn't do it this early. The CPO gets sideways on the inside. Harlow and Maggio continue to stay side by side. He actually clears himself up in front of the 97 who goes for the crossover. They keep catching Hall at the worst possible time on track. Maggio doesn't want to make the move there, but Harlow's trying to force something, and at some point something's got to give.
And they have been inch by inch more aggressive as the laps wind down. Harlow is becoming a little more desperate to get around, and there are certain parts of the track where he does get the pace on Maggio, and that point in turn 3 is they were 3 wide in the middle of it all. Harlow had put himself pushing through the middle of the corner and just nudged Maggio again out of the way, and that time cleared himself with a bit more aggression behind it. Harlow forces his way to second, and now this is the best run he has on Hall. Does he use physicality as well? For right now, he holds back on the gun. He'll stay to the outside in turn 3. 10 laps to go this time, and does anyone have anything for Zachary Hall right now?
I'll tell you who's been mounting a charge the last couple laps. It's Warren Kyle Keith, who now finds himself up into 5th. He has slowly been quiet throughout this whole run, but kept himself up in his front group, and he has been slicing his way up through here. Sits behind the front 4. He's not out of it quite yet, as the 16 now has a run on Zachary Hall. He's to the inside.
And this is the first proper challenge for the lead in a little while. Here comes Ross Harlow in search for his second career DTH Cup win. Maggio's there on the outside. Does he look to the inside? No. Still side by side in the tunnel turn.
Oh, that's going to check them all up pretty bad. Here comes now the 78 of Warren Kyle Keith. How does he play a role? He'll look to the inside, but Keith now fills the hole on the outside.
And we're going to be 2 by 2. Harlow's physical, so is Hall. They'll make contact. They're nearly 4 wide out of turn 3. Can you believe it from Pocono?
And Harlow gets the top. And now Peel stays side by side with Hall for second. They're 3 wide for 4th as Maggio loses ground now. And now it's just about who's the one running second.
And Maggio is in the worst place, middle, 3 abreast. Hunter dives under, and the former race leader has plummeted all the way to 7th with still ground to make up. They're 3 wide in the background. Hall still has a chance, but basically so does everyone else inside this top 7. 8 laps to go when we cross the start-finish line next. And does Hall repay the favor? We saw how much Harlow was willing
the 16 out of bad exit.
The 23 out of the way for the race lead. Hall will be right on the bumper to turn 3. Now he ducks under for the lead this time.
And look at Steven Stempin, who's also clawed his way back into this one as he gets sideways off the turn 3. Warren Kyle Keith up to 4th now. He's going to try to get to the outside of Peel, and he's there. He's going to try to help the 23.
This has not been a race where we can catch our breath. The racing has been outstanding, and what more could you ask for between some of the best in this field? Race high, 4th. In a little while for Warren Kyle Keith, that red target machine, and the only other Toyota Camry inside this current top 5. It's Harlow, Peel, Hall, Keith, Stempian, all the way back to the tunnel turn in turn 2 where Harlow has a slight advantage, but now it's Peel looking to the bottom end of the speedway, trying to find any bit of clean air that he can get. He's loose off the corner, and there's Hall for the taking. Still 3 cars nose to tail, 7 laps to go at the stripe.
And Keith is back to running the lane he wants to run. Peel looks to the inside. He is going to not quite get to the quarter panel, but he's going to have the push from the 23, so he's going to try to peek to the bottom here on the front straightaway. There he goes. He's on the quarter panel. He's getting the side draft. Hall's going to try to help the 16. He wants to keep them side by side, and there's Warren Kyle Keith and Peel with the dive.
Well, Last thing you want to have happen if you're Peel is let Harlow stay up top and create a freight train situation on the high
Harlow
side.
gets hooked.
Harlow is spun around nearly, but he saves it. Unbelievable save from Ross Harlow, and they're 3 wide for 3rd place. And they're still going at it.
That cost them time, and for Lawson Field, it actually worked out great because it bought him some time, but now he's going to be the one under fire by everybody in the draft, as looks like Ross Harlow's going to lose out big time in this one.
Stay in the lead long enough, and you're running on borrowed time. Ross Harlow drops all the way to 6th place, and it leaves the front 2 with a chance to win this thing, with Steven Stepien hunting back in 3rd place. Peel trying to forbid the side draft, but he may just leave the outside open for a moment. Hall, potential crossover, negated, denied to turn 1.
He had the run, but chose not to go for it right then. He's going to try to stack the air up. He's to the inside. Oh, and he's loose.
That's a poor place to catch the race leader, though. Off the corner, he washed up high enough, and he had to lay out the throttle. The North Carolinian could not make it stick it. Now at this juncture of the race, longest green flag run of the night between 2 and 4 tire calls they made 30 laps ago. This is the bed that they've made, and this is what they're going to do to make the most of what they've got. Lawson Peel in search of race win number 5 and his 2nd victory in a row, while Hall wants his first after 3 consecutive 2nd place finishes in the early spring. 5 laps to go from the tricky triangle, and Peel's in front.
And there he is trying to break the draft, but Hall is getting a good run down the front straightaway. Not enough to really make a serious move into turn 1, but he is going to get to the bumper, almost gets into the back of Peel, and you see him get into that dirty air spot. It's going to drift him up. Stepien gets to the bottom. They're both sideways. Maggio tries to fill the gap on the outside. Hall makes contact with the wall. Maggio has nowhere to go. He has to push Hall.
And that will help those guys on the top side. There's Keith, and there are several others. Stepien is left for dust on the inside of the tunnel turn. Beautiful onboard look on the bottom right of your screen. Just how hard he's trying to fight for at least a good points finish. Inside, 5 laps to go. There's Harlow on the outside. Still no challenge for Peel off of turn 3. They are approaching a bit of lap traffic. It's only 1 car, and I believe it is a white machine. May in fact be Ethan Fonseca Moreno. But we'll keep
Yes,
a
it
look.
is. There you
Now
see them
Maggio looks on the inside for 2nd.
breaking the draft, and Moreno is going to get caught here in a couple moments' time. He is just exiting turn 1 now, so they're going to catch him. And now that Maggio's moved up into 2nd, how big of a role of the timing in which they catch Moreno could either help or hurt Maggio and his chances of passing Lawson Peel for this win?
That's a good point. If Peel catches up to Moreno in the tunnel turn, that may be bad news for the Columbus, Mississippi native. And like we've seen all night long, you cannot escape the competition in the rear view mirror. Step out once, and there's somebody going to be there trying to make the move, whether it be on the inside or the top shelf. And for now, Maggio's still in striking distance. Look at Warren Kyle Keith way up the speedway in a very much line that he's used most of this race. And
Look at the run he gets.
The run, he'll sling underneath the inside. He'll try to go side by side with the fellow Toyota Camry. Maggio with a good run entering turn 1. Keith may go 2 for 1 entering the first corner. Won't have enough though to get to Maggio.
Maggio offsets himself from Lawson Peel to try to build some kind of a run, and the 78 will clear for 3rd. He gets up in front of Hall, and now he's going to have to push Maggio. He's not quite out of it yet. Anybody in this top 7 can still win.
What a race we've seen here from the virtual Long Pond, Pennsylvania atmosphere. And
Moreno actually brought it down pit road, so he's not going to play a factor in this battle.
And that's good news for Peel. Possible good news for everyone else. They won't have to skip around a slower lap car. And for another race, Moreno will struggle. He will end up 2 laps down, maybe more than that, in 19th place. As we'll cross the line for 2 laps to go. Here comes Maggio. Look to the bottom, and most importantly, he has help. Going to turn 1, Maggio the race leader.
He goes for it on the inside.
But now Warren Kyle Keith wants a bit more. Eager to eat off the 97's back bumper to get to the front. But it will not last. Maggio in control.
Oh, he gets a push from Peel off the corner, though. Does he go for the move? Not yet. But that was actually a big moment that he was able to get the slight push from Peel to get him back up there. And look how much they check up just to try to back up the corner and get a run. That's going to force Peel to lose a little bit of time. Zachary Hall loses more time. So does Ross Harlow. right now it looks like it's mostly a 3-car race at the front.
There's 5 cars within at least 0.6 of a second. And there will be one last gas from anyone second on back. And in the hands of Steven
Maggio got loose
the
and
field will catch up to the white flag from Pocono. Here comes Keith. Look on the bottom for the lead.
that was a bad exit from in turn 3. Keith is going to get clear.
And can Keith play defense now for the next 2.5 miles? He is the lone car at the front. He's been the best qualifier by any stretch of the imagination.
There's
and now
Maggio.
he has to play the defense as best as possible. Maggio can try one more time. Keith is blocked.
Oh, he turns.
And he'll go hard into the inside wall, leaving only a couple left. Lawson Peel nearly tags Maggio through the tunnel turn.
Here comes Hunter.
And there will be one more chance for anyone to get by. Steven
Hunter try to send
Maggio
it.
with Cedric Hunter
There he
on his
goes.
bumper. Final charge in 3. And it will not matter. And for the second race this season, a BBR driver sweeps them all. Steven Maggio, first career win in his debut.
And that's heartbreaking for Warren Cow Keith. But he was being super aggressive in his blocks there to try and keep the top position. But Maggio just had his nose there enough, and he almost had an opportunity to steal that one away. Just didn't have the grip going into the tunnel turn. As you see, the congratulations for a BBR driver winning in their debut for the second time this season. So we'll have to see a replay of the final lap here, as obviously Warren Kalkeith is upset.
What a critical final lap. And Steven Maggio, who had the lead, stripped away from him by Zachary Hall midway through that green flag run, saw himself fall as far as 7th place. And in all of that, kept his foot in it, while everyone was in it within at least a second or so of each other throughout that entire run. Maggio just needed one good lap to move up to the front. And after Jaden Porter showed us that the impossible could be done, which hadn't been done before, win 2 stages and win the race, Maggio says, I'll do you one better. Steven Maggio, for the first time this season, is a race winner and is the second KBueno Racing driver to visit Droppin the Hammah victory lane.
And after nearly throwing it away there in turn 3, coming to the white flag, he did a great job of getting back to the inside and put himself in a position there with Warren Kalkeith as he celebrates here on the front straightaway. Let's take a second look at it just to kind of unpack everything that happened here, Kenneth. You see, and it starts right here with turn 3 coming to the white flag. The line that Kyle Keith has been running that has worked for him the entire race. And you see Maggio running low, gets pretty loose right here. And it's going to cost him some significant time as Keith had a huge run plus draft. There's not much the 97 can do to defend that. And it actually lets Warren Kalkeith get clear into turn 1. And Maggio now realizes it's just about getting a timely corner, a timely run to get to the inside of the 78. And right about here, you see him stack the air on the 78. And it gives him a chance right here. He is there. He continues to move down the racetrack. And eventually just decides he's not going to continue going down the racetrack anymore, and it spins the 78 out. Lawson Peel with he actually makes a little bit of contact there with Maggio, but luckily for Maggio, it's not enough to send him around. Peel then ends up losing a little bit of more ground, and now it's up to Cedric Hunter for any kind of dive bomb here. Goes in as deep as he can do to make the corner, and unlike Austin Reedy, he doesn't use him as a brake, and he's able to stay in through and go on to win the race.
And that was the one blemish in Lawson Peel's final lap, was checking up there in turn 2. Obviously, didn't want to run Steven Maggio over. They have a ton of respect for each other on the racetrack, but it did woe him up enough to cause a huge loss of miles per hour on the straightaway, and it helped Cedric Hunter move through. And Category 5 Esports, with a whale of a run, end up 2nd and 3rd at the wave of the checkered flag, and it ends up in the hands of Steven Maggio, the race winner. Let's get a look at the full unofficial results after 125 laps, 312.5 miles from Long Pond, Pennsylvania, where Steven Maggio, in his debut race, captures the victory alongside 2 stage wins. Cedric Hunter ends up P2. Zachary Hall, a P3 effort. Category 5 Esports gave it their all in those final few, and they did a whale of a job. Lawson Peel was second place in turn 2 at the white flag lap, but because he had backed up, he ends up 4th. Ross Harlow with a great run and a great finish in P5. Brandon Banks consider everything that went down this race. Banks is consistent enough to hold on P6. Stepien fell back in that final run, ends up in 7th. Justin Erb with 8th place. Richard Swavely with 9th. And Alex Muscarella in the DTH 48 car rounds out the top 10.
11th goes to the 90th Sean Kalis, a good result for him here, with Casey Knighton as well in the 12th position. Tony Kivik gets 13th, with Parker Bland finishing in the 14th spot. Warren Kalkeith finishes 15th after that last lap incident, and Robert A. Moore Jr. will finish in 16th. Timothy Stubblefield will finish in the 17th position, last car on the lead lap, with Craig Parks recovering from being 4 laps down at one point to being 2 down and 18th. Ethan Fonseca Moreno pulled it down to the pit lane before they ever caught up to him to finish 19th. And Kip Beasley rounds out your top 20 finishers.
And then the rest of the field. Chris Progar 37 laps down after crashing hard in turn number 2. Stephen Harlow also found bad luck after a huge hit to the inside wall off turn 3. Chris Cabot found the same result, spinning and hitting the back end. He was 60 laps down in 23rd. And then Jason Hastings, Eric Schaefer bring the end of the full 25 car field from the Tricky Triangle and our first and only trip to Pocono Raceway. Let's head to Droppin the Hammah victory lane, where we are joined by Stephen Maggio for the first time this season. Stephen, obviously we got your thoughts about how things were going for the first and second stage, but is there any proper way to describe how that final run went with you guys on each other the entire race until the end, and you stealing the lead in that final lap to get the victory?
That was so insane, and that was like the hardest and closest I've ever raced to people for a stint that long. I mean, we wrecked like 3 times, but we kept saving it. So we were just trying to wreck, and no one could fully go around. It was really fun. Yeah, I mean, like I was running second, and Ross was like he was hitting me he was pushing me, but then he would push me a little bit too long, and he was pushing me like right on Zach's bumper, and I was getting so tight on it because I was just right there in the worst dirty air you could get. I was like, man, I really wish he would stop pushing me so much. And then one time he actually pushed me into Zach, and then they got side by side, and they something happened, and I was the biggest losers because I went from I think like second or third to 6th, and I was like, oh, it's probably over here. And then just tried to be patient and be like meticulous with the moves I was making after that, and stick to the outside and only make moves when I have to. And then I had the worst exit ever coming to the white flag, and I knew he had been running that high line the whole race, so he got a massive run. I'm just like, I'm not even gonna try to block this. I'm gonna have to try to do something. I gotta have to let him go because I think I would have wrecked him if I blocked him, honestly, or I would have wrecked myself. So the track's only like 15 lanes wide, so it's not like it was an easy block. And then we went down the second straightaway, and I mean, I was there. Like, I obviously was not trying to get into him. I feel terrible because it's my first race. I don't want people to think that, I'm wrecking people to win. I was talking before about how I want to have like a positive impact. But when I was there, every time he came down like that, he was making contact with me. So, like, he knew I was there. I wasn't like trying to wreck him or anything. I just held my line, and then he turned across my nose. So, I mean, that part was pretty disappointing, but I was happy to get the win, obviously.
And, when we heard that KBueno Racing was going to join this series, obviously the thoughts were, these are very strong drivers in you, Moreno, and Jaden Porter. Jaden came out and stunned the field by winning both stages and winning the race. You end up the second driver to do so in your debut, winning both stages and then capturing the victory at the end, albeit in a much more exciting way. I think Jaden Porter had dominated to the end at Dover, but you end up in the same situation as your teammate Jaden. So how special is that to be in your first ever race and to accomplish what you've done in tonight's event? 44 laps led, 2 stage wins, and a race victory.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I think I kind of lost track of the main goal of winning the race because I wanted to win a couple of stages where I really should have flipped it. The second stage specifically, I probably should have just flipped that stage and had the track position because I came out like 10th or something. But yeah, I was able to get both those stage wins because people around me were pitting, and so that helped. And then the end was just chaotic. So I mean, it's a lot harder to dominate Pocono than it is Dover because it's such a huge draft track, and people are getting massive runs on you. There's like the zero chance of actually being able to pull away. So, because the cars are so draggy. But yeah, I was definitely happy to win the stages and then somehow get back to the lead and win the race at the end there.
Couple more races to go before the playoffs begin, and I'd consider this probably the hardest 3-race stretch until Daytona. Tonight, Pocono, Nashville Superspeedway, Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. So what are the overall thoughts about either further starts we'll see in your Droppin the Hammah Cup Series career and what you expect to see down the line with our next couple of events?
I love Nashville. I'll tell you that. That is like a top 5 track for me. I won Nashville in the other series that you guys broadcast 4 wide. So I've had a very good track record there. I'll say that. So I'll be confident. I'm not going to go in thinking, oh, I'm going to win this, but I am confident I can run very well there, and yeah, maybe go back to back.
Oh, we'll just see if that happens. But the celebrations continue here off of your first career win in the debut from Pocono Raceway. Right before we let you go and celebrate, Steven, anybody that you want to thank for tonight's effort?
Yeah, shout out you guys in the booth. Obviously, love watching these streams back. It's a lot more fun when I can get the win. But either way, even when I don't win, I love watching them back. It was a big part of why I even wanted to join the league because you guys just do such a great job. And thank you to Steven Sempion for letting me into the league. And then you guys again are my team owners, so that's cool. And then Ethan was in the race with me. I think that's about it.
Well,
Thank you
Steven,
guys.
as always, the kind words are appreciated from our side. And on behalf of all of us, congratulations on your first ever DTH Cup Series win. A sign of things to come for this BBR team. But go on and celebrate, enjoy the victory, and we'll see you at Nashville Superspeedway next week.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Steven Maggio, Stage 1, Stage 2 winner, and then ends up the victor at the end. We'll catch up with the second place car at the start-finish line. That is Cedric Hunter with Francisco Bacallao.
Well, Cedric, it's a P2 finish here at Pocono. You had a great run going for most of the race there. You had a shot at the win. What more do you think you needed to be able to get around whoever was the leader to be able to win this race?
I think that I don't know. Like I'll have to watch the broadcast obviously and get an opinion from an outsider point of view. I felt like I wasn't aggressive maybe enough tonight, and it seemed like to get track position for the most part, you just kind of had to just have no regard for human life. So I got really lucky with the last lap there, kind of going from I think it was 6th or 7th to 2nd, and if it was somebody that I didn't like or that I didn't feel neutral about, I was going to win that race 10 out of 10 times. Unfortunately, I don't know I think it's the 97. I don't know Steven, or it's his first race that I've ever done with him. So I wasn't willing to destroy him for a win. If it was a couple other guys, I would have won the race. There's no question about it.
Well, it was still a really good effort from you and your teammates to both come away with top 3 finishes here. And we now move our way closer to the playoffs. So as we progress closer to the regular season finale, what's both of your goals as we get closer to the playoffs?
My goal, I guess, for the rest of the regular season is obviously to get a win, to get playoff points. Like I think that's going to matter a lot heading into the playoffs. And other than the 2 stage wins right now, I don't think I have any other ones. So I'm kind of going into the playoffs right now on the kind of the back foot when it comes to bonus points, based on how my season so far is going, that's maybe not the best thing. I'm happy. Granted, tonight it was 100% my fault, but I'm happy that my streak of spinning or wrecking in every single race so far this season has continued, and hopefully. I say that, but obviously, hopefully it doesn't continue next week. But at the same time, it's a pretty damn good streak. I think I'm on 11 right now, so hopefully I can hit the 12th one. I think it's Nashville next week. So, but yeah, just gonna try and do what I can. Obviously, these podiums are nice, but we keep coming up a couple positions shy. So the goal is just to finish with a win at some point.
Yes, sir. We'll be at the Nashville Superspeedway next time out. But before we let you go here, Cedric, just give you the opportunity to get the shout-out to everybody that helps make this happen for you in Category 5 Esports.
I appreciate it. Huge shout-out to Zach and Robert tonight. Zach had tremendous pace, and honestly, obviously up there at the end, led a bunch of laps, and was in a good position to possibly get a win. So Great job to him. And shout out to all the admins that make this possible. For you guys for putting on a great broadcast. As always, really looking forward to going back and watching this tomorrow. And thank you all to all the fans out there for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the product, and obviously tune in next week. I'm sure it's going to be a great race as well.
Appreciate the time you take with us, Cedric, and congrats on the P2 effort. We do hope to see you out there at Nashville.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
At Cedric Hunter for Category 5 Esports ends up runner-up position, and his teammate follows suit in third. We are now joined by Zachary Hall, and Zachary, I mean, this race from the last restart until the very end was all you and everyone else in the top 9. No one can get away from each other. You had a fair share of time at the lead. You had a shot at the race victory. What was that perspective in those final few laps? Because I'd imagine, from our perspective, it was unpredictable. The driver's perspective may be 10 times that.
Yeah, it was tough, man. I mean, you get such a big run with the draft, like the leader, you're kind of sitting duck. I felt so good all night. Like, I felt like I could pass when I needed to, could get things done, following people very well. But just once I got to the lead, I noticed, like, okay, this is, at one point I felt like I was starting to maybe gap away. That I made a big mistake, and I think from there they were on my back bumper, and I was having to think about every entry, every exit, and was getting hit in the back bumper on the entry. And I understand it stacks up. It's an accordion effect when you enter the corner with the leader, going so much slower at the draft. But unpredictable was a pretty good word, Kenneth, for sure.
And through those last laps, I mean, you put yourself in a great position, of course, you and your teammate Cedric Hunter going on through. But after plenty of races that have gone your way, some of them short of the race win, but a lot of them top 3 or top 10 finishes, where does this one stack up on the list? Because it seemed like there was a lot of speed behind your Toyota, but those final laps, you couldn't really script it for anything. Everyone was all over the place and just being as aggressive as possible.
Yeah, this one's going to sting a little bit because it got away. I kind of had it circled tonight. I've never really liked this track, but some reason it's a little bit free with the way the cars drive, a little loose off the exit of the corner now. And I really feel like that kind of suits my style. So I feel like it's kind of played into my hands. So I kind of circled it tonight as coming in like, man, can we get that first win? Because I've been so close. And I feel like at least 3 or 4 of the races, if things would have fell the right way, it could have been in the right position to pull it off. But you just got to be in that right place at the right time. And, maybe we're saving the wins for the playoffs. That's really what I'm hoping. And there's some really, really good tracks for me in the playoffs too. So I'm just trying to build really more momentum than anything and just try to get in there and then hopefully get to that Final Four and win a championship, man.
Well, the one thing you and I know, and everyone else does as well, the consistency is there. The finishes are there, and you should be a sure lock into the postseason when we move forward. Zachary, we've got plenty of great races before the regular season concludes. Nashville, Gateway, and then Daytona next after this. Any particular tracks you have in mind to stun out and maybe go out and circle that for the win?
These last 3 are not great for me personally. I'm going to be honest. Nashville, in the past, I've ran good there, but I just don't know how the balance is going to be. I haven't ran there in a while, so we'll see how that works out. It's definitely a track position race that you got to really make sure you keep your tires underneath you, but also keep track position. So it's kind of tough. And then Gateway, I do not like that track. I haven't ran it in probably 3 or 4 years, so we'll see how that goes. And in Daytona, anything could happen, man. So we'll see if we can get a win to close out the regular season. But if anything, I can't wait for the playoffs. Like that first round, I'm so excited for.
And we are excited too, Zachary. Great finish tonight. P3 from Long Pond, Pennsylvania. Before we let you bounce, anybody that you want to thank for tonight's run?
Yeah, first off, shout out to you guys up in the booth for everything y'all do. It's awesome to go back and watch these races, and I'm sure I'll have to go back and check out how hectic all that was up in the booth, man. That was it was wild for sure. So shout out to you guys. I know you always put on a great show. Thank you to everybody here at Droppin the Hammer, the league, all the admins that put it on, all the sponsors, and shout out to my teammates too, Robert Moore Jr. and Cedric, and 2-3 for us tonight. So we'll take that and move on to Nashville.
We appreciate the kind words as always, Zachary, and just letting you know, we gave you a lot of TV time up at the front. It was a ton of fun to watch from our end, but congratulations on the podium tonight from Pocono. We'll see you in the field, take on the Music City next week. Hopefully the schemes from your end and everyone else will be fun to watch.
Thank you very much, Kenneth, man. Y'all have a great night.
Zachary Hall closes out our top 3 here from Pocono Raceway. Stunning races by all 3 of them, but the spotlight obviously shining on one Steven Maggio, who just like his teammate Jaden Porter, grabs the victory in just his first career start. Unbelievable job. And now we move forward. Final 3 of the regular season greet us starting next week in the Music City Nashville Superspeedway. Will be host to our next race on May 4th. Coverage begins at 8:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Race coverage at around 8:20 p.m. Eastern. You can find that coverage in every single race of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series, or rather, Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, and the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series, live on the KBueno Racing Network. It was a doozy from the virtual Pocono Raceway, but at the end, it was Steven Maggio capturing the victory. KBueno Racing is not in a place where they would be in the playoffs, but they are making an effect early, and we will decide those 16 that will make the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series playoffs in just a couple of weeks' time. It will be exciting. We hope you are there to join us for the rest of this inaugural season, which should add to the anticipation and excitement that we've seen all season long. So that'll do it for us from Pocono Raceway. A congratulations to Steven Maggio on his first career victory. For Steven Stepien, Chris Progar, and the entire great crew of Droppin the Hammah and the Cup Series, and for all of the great members that make the KBueno Racing Network alive today. For Charlie Byers, Keelan Melsha, Eli Comerford, and for my fantastic colleague in the booth tonight, Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno, waving so long from the tricky triangle. Maggio the race winner. We'll see you guys at Nashville Superspeedway next Sunday night.